Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to day 3 of the 500th episode week of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Dale Shepard. You don't know him, probably, but Dale works venue security at the intersection, sometimes at 20 Monroe, works at St. Andrews Hall, and I believe a few other venues in the Detroit area, but as a whole, I would say mostly in the Michigan area. If you know Dale, you probably saw him working venue security at one of the venues I just listed, or potentially just going to hang out with some of the friends he's made through doing it. And I think something that's really interesting about Dale's story is sort of akin to mine in that venue security isn't really a luxurious position, and more oftentimes than not, I think most of us that go to a lot of concerts tend to know when it's wrong, when something a venue security person is being a dickhead, is being an asshole, is being too aggressive, is all the things. You know, we've seen members of like Alpha Wolf getting into a venue security. We've seen tons of viral videos of venue security basically being fucking shitty. Dale isn't one of them. I can count maybe on one or two instances where I've seen him be maybe quote-unquote aggressive, but I will definitely say, since I usually watch Dale work, because I mean, it's hard to miss someone that's 6'4" standing in front of the stage, and I'll get to this point in a second, but, you know, he's so big and he just enjoys doing the job and just enjoys making people have fun at shows. And, you know, him being such a fan of heavy music and music in general and live shows, you know, he's looking out for the concert goer. And that's something I noticed right away. You know, something I always love is the people that do their jobs and love doing it. I love nothing more than someone like Brandon, who's a friend that I've met through going to see Frankie and the Amira camp quite a bit over the years. Brandon does sound for them and a lot of other bands, as well as working sound for a venue back home where he lives. But it's a thing where I love watching Brandon get down. He enjoys the show. He has fun during it. And to me, when you're someone that does a job that most people probably won't pay attention to, don't even know what it is, and you're having fun doing it, how can you not watch it? It's just so, it's the thing about the world of live music and touring and all that, you know, there's so many things that can burn you out, or seeing the same set multiple times in a row over the course of a tour or whatever. It's those little things for me that make the shows fun. And to see someone like Dale having fun doing what I would imagine is a pretty fucking thankless job, it's something that drew me to him. And then eventually he came up to me and my wife and was like, I see you at shows, I'm Dale, blah, 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 blah. And that started basically the relationship and the friendship that we have now, where it felt kind of one-sided, because a lot of times Dale would be like, hey, come over here, like into this little pocket where you can see and people aren't like on top of you, which as a shorter person, I greatly appreciate, and especially as an older shorter person, I appreciate, because sometimes I have a little bit harder time standing for that long without some issues now with my feet and my knees and so forth. But it's a thing where I love putting a spotlight on people that maybe are people you don't know in an industry that I think a lot of people want to be a part of, but maybe the band part isn't what you're capable of doing. That there are ancillary avenues into it, and Dale is someone, as I've gotten to know him over the last few years, that is definitely a big risk taker. Follows passions, follows his loves, and he loves music, and he loves people, and he loves being a people person in the fact that he takes care of people. Not just literally doing his job, but I think something that is also commendable that no one asks him to do at all. He'll have touring bands come over and stay at his house. He'll bring food. He'll cook a massive amount of food for the touring package that comes through and just give it to them because he understands what a home cooked meal means to them on the road versus just some fast food bullshit. And I think it's those little things that showcase who Dale really is. So, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Dale, and I'll talk to you all on the other side of it. Well, I mean, could be way worse with that stuff. It's always funny too when you're like sometimes I have sometimes I'll have questions or some other stuff like off to the side that I'll like look at, and I'm always like get paranoid because I'm like, holy shit, people can see that I'm looking at things, and I'm like, I mean, of course I'm looking at stuff. I'm looking at a computer screen. Like, why wouldn't I be looking at things?
I normally have a third monitor like below mine, so I have like two side by side and then one below it. So if I'm on video calls and stuff like that, and I need to like check something, I just make it look like I'm looking at my third monitor.
Better than your third leg, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be awkward, especially in an office setting. But
I don't know, man. That's all the rage nowadays. It seems like everyone just wants to get caught making amateur porn at their like house or their job or in their car or whatever. And that's sort of weirdly, that seems to be sort of the selling point now of these things. It's like, and I get caught, and it's like that's like as a person who gets really. Like, as someone who gets really weirded out by awkward situations, like, there's certain shows and stuff like Bridget and I will watch, and I'll have to stop watching for a minute or leave the room because I'm like, this is so awkward, I just can't deal with it. That it's like, I don't need that level of awkwardness in porn, too. Like, where I'm like, you're going to get caught? Just put your pants back on and just roll up your windows. Like, it's fine. You don't need to do all that for my attention. Ironically, someone sent me, speaking of that, before we really get rolling, someone sent me a video of someone locally here to where we live, or where I live, I should say, that did one of those things. And I was like, cool, I didn't need to know that, but it reminds me of a joke someone once said, where at some point porn's going to be so not a care for most people that you're going to have friends who do it, and you're just going to stumble across someone you actually know, and you're like, oh, I know that person.
Hey.
So for those that don't know, and obviously I think a lot of people probably won't that listen to the show just that by listening, but you have been mentioned in probably at least 15 episodes or more of the show through different people I've talked to. So for everyone who's watching, listening, this is Dale, the security guard from the intersection from, St. Andrews Hall up in Detroit. Some of the local festivals here, 20 Monroe. So you kind of work everywhere and nowhere all at once. And you have a real job, and you have a family, and you do a bunch of other things other than that. But, it's kind of funny because I feel like you and I have really not known each other very long, but it is through a proximity thing of me and my wife going to a lot of shows, you working most of the ones we go to, and just kind of not being... Probably more so from your side, because I probably wouldn't have gone to talk to you had you not come to talk to me, being like, hey, I see you at a bunch of shows. And I'm like, yup.
I mean, I've probably seen you at shows going back at least to 2010.
Yeah.
In the local scene, right? So, because I used to go to, orbit room shows, worked a little bit with a buddy of mine at Mixtape when I was up on the north side of Grand Rapids. So, I mean, I've seen you and Rush. Well, I mean, better part of 15 years. It was just finally, I'm like, all right, I see you over here. You look like a fun person who goes to shows, and also I need concert buddies because driving to Detroit sucks solo. So
certainly does.
Hey, how's it going? And it kind of, just went from there.
I think something that's interesting to me, though, just in sort of the meet cute of us, essentially music is a thing that we're both passionate about. Obviously, we would go see a lot of live shows and through meeting kind of essentially a community in our local scene. It's a thing that I feel like more often than not anymore, being my age, because I think I'm a handful of years older than you, that it's a thing where that's sort of been my biggest gripe, is that there really is kind of, for as many venues as we have, for as often as you see people at shows, I don't feel like there's really a scene anymore necessarily. And I feel like it's the older people, or the people who have been going to shows, like you said, for 10 plus years and just been seeing the same people, that we're still kind of the ones that are keeping our scene alive, for lack of a better term. But it's interesting to kind of think about how we met through the way we used to, which was just going to shows and, hey, there's that guy I keep seeing. And we like the same bands, obviously. So what's up?
Yeah, it's interesting you said it, because there's a small group. It's been growing quite a bit. And they're the like I Hate Ohio group. They'll wear a shirt that's got a Ohio with a big no sign around it. And there's a bunch of really cool people that I've met through that. And that's starting to kind of be that scene group that kind of growing that back up. Because like you said, I mean, it's like I see you, whenever I run into people I've seen from the past 15 years, like, oh, hey, how's it going? But yeah, that it's nice when you get that, like, that group where you walk in, you're like, I know that I'm going to run into these 10 people, and then people see that and start to, grow that group, and it's starting to come back. But yeah, the metalcore scene really died. I mean, all the venues, right? All the small venues stopped being popular. All the bands that everybody was listening to went to the 2,500 cap rooms, or and so on. So like, it's hard to, when you're in a room with that many people, to go and find 15. Like, oh, I might run into one or two people. Luckily for me now, it's like I go to a show and there's at least 20 people. They're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And sometimes I feel really awful because I don't remember everyone's name. And for those of you who I've awkwardly looked at that may stumble upon this, I apologize. I'm not being rude. I meet lots of people, and I've taken lots of hits to the head from playing football for like 20 years. So,
well, I guess to kind of pull a Marin of sorts, let's kind of go back to kind of go forward. Kind of like, how did you grow up? Like, where are you from? Kind of what was your upbringing and all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, I grew up it's so different than what you know of me. I grew up super conservative Christian home in inner city Flint. So I lived there for 18 years. I was just talking to someone the other day about this. Like my rebel jams were like Newsboys and DC Talk at the time, right? Because that wasn't praise and worship, but it was Christian contemporary. So, on Rock Band, I still jam Jesus Freak every once in a while, because I still remember that. It's a core memory at this point in my life. Now from there, like I graduated high school in 2006, moved over to the west side of the state. I went to Hope, a small college in Holland, which at the time was a small town no one knew of, other than tourists. And no one thought of it other than the tourist time, which I miss those days. It's starting to kind of become a pretty large area, not quite a city. When I think like Grand Rapids size city, but it is very popular. Yeah, came over there, played college football for a few years, was not good in college. Played rugby, was good at rugby. A lot of fun doing that. Let's see. From there, like I started in college. That's when I started going to shows. Linked up with some buddies who were doing security at the Mixtape, and started doing it there. From then, after I graduated college, I just focused on my career. Played football for fun, and went to concerts for fun. I remember one year my goal was to go to one concert every month, and I was like, man, that's such a lofty goal. That's 12 shows in a year. That's insane. And the last 2 years been 100 plus each year. But yeah, I went from there, and just hanging out, and then the whole COVID thing happened, and as someone living out here, never really thought going back to the east side of the state. When COVID happened, it was just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do afterwards. Started playing football again, just for again, just keep me active, do something other than sit on the couch. And then I got a really bad concussion, and it was one of many that I've had in my life. But it took one. It was just a massive hit from a linebacker. Just hit me just face mask to face mask, and just kind of started seeing stars. It was nice and hot outside, so I had the heat exhaustion factor. Just started doing the whole dry heaving thing and freaking out. I'm like, all right, well, that's the last game of this I'm ever playing. I got, at the time, this was 2020, so my son would have been 3, or 2021, so my son would have been 4, going on, just about 4, and my daughter was just born. And so I'm like, all right, what am I doing with my life? I need to find something else that's going to do this, and reach out to my buddy, who he kept me in the security scene. I do Irish and Ionia, did it for 4 years, right, leading up.
I'm sorry.
Dude, it was so much fun. It was I did one show a year, scratch the itch. It wasn't a show, right? Well, it was actually, I had concerts. It was crazy.
I was to say, it kind of is.
Yeah, it was. It was
like an all-day block party.
Yeah, it's a festival. There's 20,000 people, and in a small area, drinking from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. Oh man, there's some stuff you see there. The amount of people that just randomly put their hand in your pocket and tell you they love you. No, you don't.
Pinch to grow an inch.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, hello. Yeah, so I reached out to my buddy Zach, who did that and who got me into that, and I was like, hey man, Upheaval's coming up, and his first year for it, and I was like, I know that company Centurion, we've worked with them before. Are they doing Upheaval? And at the time they didn't have the contract, and like the Thursday before, he hits me up. He's like, hey, they just posted they need people to do Barricade. I was like, dude, send him my info, because at the time I had my Facebook turned off. Like, I didn't have any social media, I just had Messenger, as I just didn't really want an online presence at the time. I just kind of being, going away and just kind of sit in my corner, do my own little thing. And he sends the info, and the owner of the company, or one of the owners, he contacts me. He's like, hey man, I heard you're interested. It'd be catching crowd surfers. Do you think you're capable? I was like, I think I can do it. And I call him when I'm walking up, and he sees me. He looks at me. He goes, oh, dude. He's like, I didn't realize it was you. He's like, I think you can do it. And for reference for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm like around the 6'8" height, and just clocked in at my heaviest, which starting to. I'll actually gonna text you about this later. Starting every day this week, I have been to the gym. I'm going this afternoon. But I just clocked in at my heaviest at 382 on the scale. And I'm like, no, we're done. It's not, because you and I've been talking about it on and off the past 2 years. And that's when I'm like, no, I didn't want to, I wasn't even message you about it yet till I did it all. And I just, because, yeah, that's, oh. But yeah, so that is my size and stature. I'm a very large man. And so it was hilarious when I walk up, to him, and he's like, "Oh, all right," just towering over their biggest people and just laughing. And that was my first time like really getting into it. It was my first time really getting to Barricade. And so started working Upheaval. From there, met some really cool people. Love a lot of there's a lot of really good people in Michigan security. I've met there's good people in the surrounding states as well. It's unfortunate that concert and venue security gets a pretty bad rap. I understand why. The bar is relatively low, and when you see people just I had a video sent one time of there's actually a friend in a band sent it to me during their show. The guy was apparently being a menace in the pit. Crowd surfs. They crowd surf him out, and as he gets right to security, instead of security just grabbing him, dude just hits him in the jaw 9 times.
Is this the Alpha Wolf show?
It might have been. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Lukey ended up.
No, it's different. No,
different one. Oh,
yeah, it's a different one, dude.
Oh, okay. Apparently, it just happens with that tour.
No, it was the earlier tour. It was a different tour.
Okay, fair enough. It just happens with that band, then I guess.
It does. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, so the dude come over and Sabian sent it to me. He's like, dude, did you see this? I was like, holy crap! And it was the funny part was because it was a barricade full of tough guys. The guy comes over, and the guy just wants to tough guy him, and I'm sure everyone has their reasons, right? I wasn't there. I don't know everything that went down. I don't want to talk crap about something I wasn't there, but like I've seen it. Like, you see that stuff, and when you see it through that lens, that's all you get to see. You don't know everything else that's going on. You don't know why the guy did what he did. Maybe as the guy was coming over, he hit a girl. Maybe that's what he was doing in there. Maybe he swung at him, right? I mean, there's so many things because you're front and center, right? It's whenever people have me training people, like, I walk up, you see everybody barricade like this. I don't know if you've ever paid attention, but I don't ever cross my arms. I'm always smiling.
Rarely.
Yeah, very rarely.
But it does happen.
It does, but it's very rare. Usually it's because I'm winded, because, again, 380. It's not because it's all muscle. There's a lot of fat there. But, no, I always tell everybody, I'm like, hey, man, if you really want to understand, like, just go watch the movie Roadhouse. Like, you're here to be nice. Like,
yeah.
It's very cliche, but, like, watch the movie. Smile. Be friendly. I always tell everyone, like, hey, like, come in. Like, if I'm training, it's like, hey, come in. The first 3 things that you need to know is you're here for a free concert. Enjoy the concert. The next thing is make sure that everyone's safe. Nobody's hurting themselves or anyone else. So if someone's doing something stupid, if it's not hurting them, not hurting somebody else, or nobody's in imminent danger, like, let it go, right? Like, I know people that shine lights on, kids that are up on shoulders. As long as the parents not running that kid in the mosh pit, which I have seen, like, whatever, right? Like, hey, just step away from the pit, go to the back, cool. And then my third biggest rule is, make sure no one's doing anything that's going to jeopardize the venue, right? So minors drinking, things like that, right? Like, doing coke in the middle of the floor. Don't do that. Don't do. I've seen that in ketamine a few different times. Just right in the. Just, come on, go to the bathroom like a responsible adult.
It's like Cat Williams. I can see you, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the best part. Like, the people, like, they see that I see them. I'm like, because I'll do this. I'm like, I got you, and they're like, me? I'm like, come on, dude. Just. There was one show. This dude originally had face paint on, but all the face paint like melted off because he was sweating so much. He just had like 2 white streaks right here. I was like, hey, and he was just like, he was losing it to the music, but a little bit more than normal. So it's like, hey, man, I was like, we gotta get him out of here. They're like, what? I'm like, bro, like, you got some booger sugar right there. Like, let's go. It gets him out. Found out it was just he had face paint that had all wiped off. But we're like, hey, you see how this looks, right? He was like, no, it's, my bad, dude. Yeah.
I'm a Salvador Dali painting now.
Right. But, yeah, no, that's my whole shtick kind of in a nutshell. So, like, grew up, again, like I said, inner city Flint, very, very different culture on the east side of the state. Went from being like one of 20%, of the white population in my high school to going to Hope, where there on the football team there was one black kid, and I got a fun story about that one. We're in football camp, and he was a linebacker. It was a good friend of mine. It was a roommate during college. Great dude. But everyone's like, man, what? Like they were talking to him at one point. They're like, what is, what's it like being the only black dude here on the football team? He's like, no, man, there's another dude from Flint here. It's like, oh, that's the big giant white dude over there. He goes, oh, damn, the white dude from the hood. This is gonna be interesting. And that's the one thing, man. Like growing up in that environment and then going into the security scene. I grew up around where tough dudes didn't talk. And I always say this to people, like a Chihuahua will let you know they're a big dog. Pit Bull will just mess you up, right? Like, that's it. But, like, do I want to go around an angry Chihuahua? No, because I don't want to get bit. That shit hurts. You have better chances of not getting bit by an angry Pit Bull. But if a Pit Bull really wants to mess you up, it does, right? And again, using that not to slander Pit Bulls. I think they're a lovely breed of dogs. One Absolutely. Of my favorites. They're incredible. But it's just that's the thing, right? So that's my biggest thing is doing what I'm doing. Just never be a tough guy. Like I'm here to enjoy the show with you. I'm here to hang out. Like if it's been fun. I've gotten the reputation with some of my coworkers. They're like. Where it's if I throw someone out, they're like, "Oh, this dude really messed up," and the guy, throw the person out. They're like, "What do you mean I messed up?" They're like, "Hey, he doesn't throw people out, dude. Like, what did you do?"
Yeah,
and that's what I like. Like the intersection. It's big shout out to that venue. They've been nothing but family to me. I love every single person I work with there. But the crew there, right? They don't do the whole tough guy thing, and when people, anytime we you get people in, if they start, like everybody kind of does it every once in a while, they get those moments, that's just not the culture. People talk to them about it and they stop. Same thing with 20, St. Andrews, same thing. Like no one in there wants, like I said, I had nothing but great things to say about the whole Michigan security scene at concert venues. They're just phenomenal people. So, again, for anyone who's ever goes to shows, if the dude looks angry, just go talk to him, say hi. Probably makes their day.
Absolutely. Kind of want to back up a little bit and touch on a few things. So obviously, So kind of going back to the Flint thing, I think there's obviously the perception. I would say probably misconception, more apropos term. Not even just outside of Michigan, but I would even say people that live here in Michigan probably have a wrong perception of what it is. You kind of touched on something that you and I have talked about in our talks going to shows and so forth, driving those long distances back and forth from Detroit and so forth. But, talking about sort of the culture shock of moving from somewhere where it's more integrated. I'll just put it bluntly like that and say you're in a more integrated area versus where you ended up. And, I've said countless times, like I ran into that living on the East Coast and then moving here, sort of the same thing you said, like the number maybe wasn't as, I would say probably 60-40, somewhere around there. But, it's something where maybe even 70-30 depending on, but whatever. But it's a thing where I don't think people understand that. Like, I think because, talking with my wife, she's like, well, I don't have the same frame of references as you do, even though we're the exact same age. We had sort of, in theory, the same access to the same TV, the same music, the same things. Because of where we grew up geographically and kind of the environments we grew up in, we have completely different experiences. So I always think that that's kind of interesting, how we've kind of correlated that as far as like the culture shock of moving away. And you're like, because Hollywood, for those that don't know, like, and I go out there, that's where my wife was living for a little while. I get stared at hard when I go out there. They do not like me.
Dude, there's so many old white people here. And like grumpy, very, very, it's very Christian, but like the bad kind.
Yep.
Because again, every group has the bad ones, but it's the old people who judge you for everything. Yep. They go home and slap their wife for not having dinner, ready on time.
Right. Yeah. It's a thing though, like where that was a bit of a culture shock too, just going to there and seeing how different life is out there. It's very, the best way I could describe it, and again, if anyone's from Holland, I don't think you could discredit this opinion from my perspective of having never lived there and only visited for hours at a time, but it feels like what I imagine they're trying to portray, like the Hallmark Lifetime movie, or not Lifetime, Hallmark like Christmas movies. It's like that, like the heated sidewalks, everyone's super blonde, they're all Dutch, essentially, like 6 foot, pretty, and it's very insular as far as the types of people you see there, and it's very weird. Like, I noticed it. It was one of the first things I noticed when I was out there. I was like, so cultural diversity, not a thing out here. Got it.
And you're like, the funny thing, right? It's so geographically, we're 20 miles from each other, right? But it's a bubble.
It's a world of difference.
It's crazy. And like over here, like you're short. like you're not just kind of short. Like if you're 6 foot in Holland,
or under.
But if you're 6 foot, you're short.
Yeah,
it was crazy. Like I had friends in college who were 6'10", like 6'8", 6'10". Because when I went to college, I was only 6'5". I grew until I was 23. And then I had a roommate who was 7 foot. Like, I'm 6'11". Bro, you are 7 foot. You look, he looks like I can't think of the actual NBA player's name, but the one.
Wemby?
No, the from Space Jam, the blue monster dude.
Oh.
Sean Bradley?
Yeah, Sean Bradley. He used to play for the 76ers, I think, at the time.
Built just like that dude, but more gangly. Sorry.
So he looks like, spoiler alert, he looks like the baby from Alien Romulus, because I just saw that.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Okay.
Shit, sorry. Spoiler, sort of.
Yeah.
That's also played by a basketball player from, I think, Lithuania, who's like 7'4" or something like that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
It just looks weird.
Yeah, so it was crazy. Like everyone's like, "Oh man, do you ever?" Because I'll run into people at shows. They're like, "It's like, dude, do you ever see people, as tall as you?" I rarely ever see people taller than me. I'm like,
John, the other John.
Dude, oh yeah, John, who's half inch taller than me and lets me know whenever he can. Love that dude.
Now, for those listening, imagine, and I'll have to get a photo to post on the socials next show that we're all hanging out together at. But imagine John, who's. If you're 6'8", so he's 6'9".
He's 6'8". Yeah, he's 6'8". I'm 6'8" on a good day.
So two basically people at 6'8", then a friend of mine who's probably 6'3", if I'm guessing, Trevor. And then it's like me, who's like 5'7", and it's just like you just hang out with giants, and you're like, yeah, pretty much.
Is there a good? We were talking about Flint and my upbringing. Is there a good way to show this picture? I got it on my phone, but. We'll see if it does justice.
Oh yeah, you're. I forgot you showed me this photo a long time ago, and it reminded me, and I still reminded again. I'll have to pull it up eventually to show you, but it's like the basketball photo that someone posted online of their high school basketball team, and they're like, it looks like you still have to unlock the other 6 players on your team because they're so dark in the photo. It looks like they're shadowed like in a video game, and I still think that's the funniest thing ever. So just as a reference.
Best part about that photo is it was middle of March, so I'm the whitest as I can ever be, and it's a navy blue background, and we all looked at each other and went, "Let's do this the stupidest thing." And so we intentionally put we put the whitest dude in the middle of the darkest people. We did it on purpose. We did it in my track photos too. I just don't ever have those.
It's color balancing.
It is the funniest shit ever, and we used to have so much fun with that in high school because we'd all crack up about it, and it was fun times.
But actually, sorry to cut you off. You just kind of made me think of something. So I don't know if we've discussed this at all, but do you feel like because I feel like you're kind of having to. I'm not saying you're doing this, but I think the perception is that you're sort of having to explain this experience, this joke, this thing that you just did with your friends, because now we live in a time and a lot of people didn't grow up the way we did in the areas we did with the people that we did. So you have to over explain things because people don't give you that they don't know who you are or what you're from or what you've done. So it's in the world we live in now. It's like you kind of have to retroactively.
Oh, you have to. Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, that you kind of have to retroactively be like, here's why this was okay then, and it's like, these were my friends. This is something we all thought was funny. It is funny.
I think
still.
It's still funny today. Like I would recreate this photo if I could see any of those guys from that time. I would absolutely recreate that photo. I miss all of those guys. But they were, brothers, right? We wrestled together. Like, you're half naked in a room that's, you're pouring sweat,
like, yelling at the other person for being dirty and giving you ringworm halfway through the season.
Right. You
dirty fuck.
You're right. It's like, like same thing with football. Like, there's a brotherhood that, if I ever saw any of my old teammates, if they ever needed anything, I'm there for them. Like, I try to keep in touch as well as I can, but it's there's a bond there that it never goes away. But to answer your question, that is a really, really good question. Yes. So so that was the biggest thing for me going from living in Flint, where you made off-color jokes all the time. That was it, right? We would roast the shit out of each other, make fun of everyone. Like, I was called Snowman, the most, I get called Cracker and Honky and like, but if it'd be my own friends and teammates that do that. But like, if we went to another school and someone did that, I remember one time we were playing a team and they had a player on their team. And he was the only black dude, only not white person on the team. And he comes up and just spits in my face and just calls me a lover. And I lose it, because they just got spit in the face right in front of the refs, and the refs are just like, whatever. And this was right after our center got annihilated, like whistles blown. He's standing there, and the other team just like throws our center on the ground right between the refs as they're in their huddle, and they're just like saying nothing. So again, you've known me well enough now. Like, I am very not prone to violence or aggression. That's why being 6'8" and 3 something, I never made it to the NFL, because it's just not. Football's fun, and I'm not an angry person until you spit in my face and call me names, and also just saying that remark about my teammates, right? I don't care if you're the same color as them. When you say it with hate in your voice, like, we have problems. So I go to the sideline, I lose my shit, and my coach is like, dude, okay, what's going on? Because they've only ever seen me like that one other time, and they're like, what is happening? I was like, Coach, I really don't want to say what just happened. He's like, say it. All my teammates are like, and he goes, all right. So he draws up a play, because I played tight end. I was a blocking tight end. I did not catch a ball, but he had me in this one time. I go out for an intentional pass route. I went up, and that rover linebacker comes in, because he's like, oh shit, this dude might actually go to pass. And as he come in, I just teed off, blindsided him. Just
crack block.
Yeah, dude. And they did the fake throw, and then they ran it off around the side, and it was amazing. I got my revenge back on the dude. But so growing up that way, and like, I never, it's the cliche thing, but I never saw color. We're friends. Like, we were all poor as hell together. We were friends. We just hung out. We did whatever you do, and it's the same thing. Like, I have buddies that my Instagram algorithm is just terrible, because a couple of my security buddies over in Detroit, we just send the most absolute horrible things to each other, and it's great. But going to Holland with a bunch of very, very white people, like, not like kind of white, but like saltine white, like
mayo white. Dude, mayo is spicy white.
Dude, some of these people, like, I joke with my wife, because she grew up in Holland. I always tell her that ketchup is just Dutch hot sauce. They put that shit on everything. It is their Franks. Well, Heinz, go for it. Like, come on, man. True. What are you doing here? Eggs.
That's funny.
Ketchup. Mac and cheese. Ketchup.
That's Bridget.
Dude, that will make me throw up so fast. I had a buddy who put mayonnaise on a corn dog once, and it looked like just straight hot melted cum. I'm like, ooh! And he's just like deep throating it. I'm like, come on, dude, don't lick that. Don't lick the tip. But no, so like I'm a freshman, and I was actually just telling my old high school football coach about this the other day. I'm not gonna repeat the slur because it's not really bad. It's a slur. Anyway, I had made a comment, which it was just something we used to call all of my mixed friends, and one of the mixed kids on the team, they were like, oh, this and this. I was like, oh, you mean? And I thought nothing of it, and everyone's like, that's racist. I'm like, well, no, okay. And I'm like, this is, and then that's where I'll start. Like, I'm just like explaining everything. Like, okay, cool. This time only. And so, like, yeah, dude, I'm always constantly like, I read the room, and I've had to do that, my whole life for different reasons. Which again, I think that's where like security is just fun for me because I love to people watch. Like, I like when we go to concerts together, it's so much fun. I don't know how much of the actual show we watch. We're just sitting there. All right. Oh, look at those two Mountain Dew drinking motherfuckers. Play count the teeth they're missing.
Right.
But yeah, no, dude, it's funny you said that. Like, yeah, I know, like, not that you were calling me out on it, but yeah, it's something. It's interesting that you've picked up that I do that because I know I do that a lot. Where I'm like, I'll make a joke and I go, "Ooh, this is why I said that." And you're like, yeah, whatever, dude. I don't care. That shit was funny. But
right.
Not everybody understands where my heart is and where I'm at. Like, I think that thing should, like, and again, this might be my hot take, but I think that if you don't have hate in your heart, things should be brought to light. And if people like, so let me rephrase that. Things should be brought to light. We should talk about, the taboo subjects. We should do it. And if you don't have hate in your heart, and the way that you bring stuff up is to poke fun at it and poke fun at the ridiculousness of it, right? Like, I'm not poking, like, if I poke fun at a stereotype, it's not because I'm poking fun at the people of the stereotype. I mean, sometimes if it's a really bad one, but like, it's mostly like, come on, how ridiculous is this? Like, why is this acceptable? Why do you, like, this, I have a cousin who used to live with me for a little bit, and he had some really bad breaks in life, a couple of different times, and he came to live with me, me and my wife, for a couple different times. At one time, he said something, and it wasn't funny. There was some hate behind it, and we had a real candid heart-to-heart. And he, my cousin, who's basically my brother, he's 6 foot, but like a $160, and so my heart to heart with him was picking him up off the ground. And I was like, "Hey, man," he's like, "Dude," and and it's, that's the thing is, like, you can make jokes, you can say what you want, but if it comes across hateful, like, you better explain it, and that's why I like some of the comedians that are out there right now. Like, you watch some of the stuff, and they'll poke at it, and you're like, all right, you're brave. But, you get people rolling, and they start laughing about it, and you're like, all right, But also, like, I do care if if my joke does, if I make a joke and 99 people in the room laugh and there was one person offended, like, I want to hear that too. Like, help me understand why. Like, let's have that conversation. Yeah. I think that's the biggest part about me in general is, like, I want to understand things. If I've done anything to piss someone off, I want to understand why, because, I want to be better. So if it's something that I can fix, like, let's talk about it. I know there's people that I've pissed off in life, and just let me know why. And I guess that's also, again, what I've just done my whole life is try to, be conflict adverse. So it's, all right, I did something that upset you. Let's talk about it first. I had a humbling experience in high school. I was in 10th grade, 11th grade. I ran my mouth a little too much, and got jumped. Getting on my bus. Probably, I mean, I definitely deserved it. It sucked because I had braces at the time, so that really sucks. Nothing like getting kicked in the mouth with braces. That's a feeling I don't wish on anyone. However, if you deserve it and it humbles you and you change,
yeah,
maybe it was a lesson you needed.
Right.
And for me, like, if I, those guys, I was a teammate with one of the guys later on in my high school career, and I wish no ill will on any of them. It was part of my life. I ran my mouth a lot. I thought that I was invincible. And then after that, I had a chip on my shoulder, so that helped me with other things in life. I never got bullied or picked on after that, but it also helped me to learn. Like, it's one of those things, like, you see people say and post stuff on the internet, and it's like, man, maybe you should have braces, and maybe you should get kicked in the mouth right now. Like,
yeah, that whole thing of, you can tell that someone, I mean, to kind of say this and then kind of segue into a different question that I wanted to ask you.
Go for it.
I think it's the running joke sort of like, right now everyone's like, freedom of speech. And it's like, yes, you're more than welcome to have freedom of speech. What you're talking about, though, is almost having an absence of repercussions of your speech. Yeah, like, you can say whatever the fuck you want. You can be wild as hell, say the most ignorant shit, pop off on somebody, but there's consequences, and people don't have to want to listen to you or anything like that. And I think that's sort of where everything's at now, is everyone feel like, especially, kind of going into the comedy world, since I'm getting a lot more immersed in that lately, because I don't listen to shows like mine anymore. I go more down the rabbit hole of just interviews of like musicians and entertainers as a whole. But I think that's like the thing that they're all kind of, some of the more hack people are like, well, I should be allowed to say whatever I want. And it's like, you absolutely can. But there's repercussions for what you say and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of where we're at now, is sort of this fine line. And it's something that, a lot of my friends and I that are older, and even on the Bar podcast, we kind of talked about, where it's like, getting older, we're kind of rooted and wired in the old ways of how we used to talk and saying things are gay or whatever. And it's like, even discussing with a friend of ours who we just went to Vegas with that is gay. And it's like, were you ever offended by that? And he's like, no, never felt that anyone who was saying like, man, I got called into work and then had to work overtime, that shit was gay. And it's like, I never felt like, oh, they're attacking me. It was just like, no, I agree, that shit sucks. And like, that's how it was always kind of used. But we live in a world, and kind of like you're saying, where those of us who I think are a lot more empathetic and understanding of other people's struggles and so forth, that we don't ever want to be malicious or mean, and that we kind of have to navigate the old with the new, where it's like, yes, I still feel this way. I still have things that I'm so conditioned to doing because it was a part of our lives and vernacular for so long. And then now in the last handful of years, you got to change it. And it takes a little time to get used to the new norm, whatever it is. I mean, I still struggle. Like, I mean, the other day I caught myself saying at the bar, like, there are a table full of women who happen to be at the table we usually sit at Anchor. And I was like, someone said, oh, don't you know anyone at the table? I was like, I don't know who any of those fucking hoes are over there. And then, like, I looked at my friend's wife, who I was like, she doesn't really know me. She probably is like, oh, so all women are hoes? And I was like, and then I caught myself going like, and just for future reference, I would call a table full of dudes I don't know a table full of hoes as well. Right. Hoe is an equal opportunity word, in my opinion, that you can use it for men or women. It would just describe the people over there. But it is kind of funny when you kind of catch someone looking at you, you're like, what did I say? Oh, shit.
Yeah, I've had to become friends with replacement words. Like,
ooh, hold on. Real great example of this. I think you were at the show. I don't know if you were working, but I think you were at least at it. You might have been working at that point. I just don't know if I knew you then.
Okay.
The Atreyu Motionless in White tour at the intersection? You weren't working that?
No.
I had to have told you the story at some point then, correct? With the girl crying?
I don't know.
Okay. So Atreyu Motionless White are doing a co-headline tour with my dudes in Wilson opening the tour.
Okay.
It was one of the first times Wilson had been back through Michigan since being signed, like, in a while, because they just didn't play Michigan anymore. Atreyu was not headlining that night. They were direct support. So hate to say it like this, but all the motionless and white people, you know this about yourselves. You dress up, full goth makeup, full attire. You get decked the fuck out for these shows. Love that you love the band so much to do all that. Just not my thing. So they're dead center, front row. Brandon's singing something, they're talking, and some girl dead center is just on her fucking phone. Just on her phone. And he was like, and he points around and he's like, yeah, you know, like, I know you don't want to listen to us, but, you know, like, we only got a couple more songs. Just try to be engaged, and I promise you'll have fun if you just try and give us a chance. And this girl just starts crying. And apparently her boyfriend back in Indiana or wherever the fuck they were from was texting her, calling her, I don't know, that he was going to kill himself. And then Brandon was just like, so your thing is to just stay here, dead center, and text. Like, if it was that important, you would leave. Like, you would go take the phone call. You would not be right here. And then she just started crying, and then it was like a thing where it was like, yeah, like, you're kind of full of shit. I called you out. Like, just say you don't like it's fine if you don't like us, but like to be so rude, like dead center, like, you know, we're trying to do a thing, like, and I promise you'll have more fun if you participate. And this chick is just like, and her like makeup, like her boo scary goth makeup's like fucking running and shit. And then Julia, who's a wonderful woman, Porter's wife, went over and brought her like a not a barn towel, but like a towel of some sort to help her wipe her tears and shit in her makeup. And it was just a thing, like, it went from being funny to then kind of being like, oh, that's a bummer. Yeah. But then kind of being funny again, because like he said, it's like, if it was that serious, you would have fucking left. You would not still be sitting in this show. And it's one of those things, like, I remember seeing both sides, and we talked about it after the show. Like, I was just like, man, that was so gnarly. And he's like, at first when she said what she said, I was like, oh, fuck. But then I thought about it for like 2 seconds, and I'm like, this has been going on our whole set. So if it's been going on that long, like, I'm not saying you're not having an argument with someone, or I'm not saying you're not any of these things, but if it was that important, you're choosing to be here versus handling that. You've shown that you've made your decision. And that was the part where it's like, there are those of us, I think, that when you see something, you realize like this moment of, oh, I kind of overstepped a boundary. I said something I maybe shouldn't have. But then you kind of reel it back just a second, and then you go, well, also, I have these facts that sort of support why I was saying what I'm saying, which if you're saying your boyfriend, whatever, is threatening to kill himself, then you, by your actions, are proving and saying, I would rather be here than to go deal with this. So now that I'm calling you out for an action that is not what I would want of someone being dead center at a show of mine, and you say that, it's like, well, then go handle that. Because now that's a really fucking awkward situation for everyone else. And then I had never thought of this until literally right now. What are all the people around you then going to be thinking, like, oh, here's this girl and she's going through this shit, and like, what an awful person. You're not even choosing to talk to your boyfriend that you apparently love or want to be with. Like, I don't know, just a very weird situation as a whole. Not one I've really ever experienced in that situation. I've seen all kinds of other things that I'm sure you've seen too, working at the venues that you have, but that was just one where it kind of culminates everything we're sort of saying. Like, you said something that was funny, someone took it the wrong way, you kind of got to backpedal it a little bit, and then you kind of double back down on it after the fact of like, no, I'm not in the wrong here. You just don't know me, and what I said wasn't meant to be malicious. It was meant to be funny. And now I'm going to double back and try to be funny on this thing and then kind of take it back. But that was a funny memory that I always remember, and I always feel sort of bad, but I think speaks to kind of everybody involved in that situation. Something else I kind of wanted to discuss with you, because I think it's an interesting, it's not my experience. So my old co-host Dan grew up very much sort of like you in a religious household. I don't know if you had to go as far as he did of having to hide CDs and calling them different things or putting different labels on them.
Let's see. No, I mean, I used to have to hide Ninja Turtle toys for a little bit.
Okay, so maybe not with the music, but the same thing with having to hide something that was not.
I almost got I got detention in middle school once because they tried to have us watch Harry Potter, and I lost it because my mom was so like opposed to it that I was like, no, I'm not watching this. No, it's just a movie you can watch. I was like, I don't think you understand. I would rather deal with whatever consequence you want to give me right now than deal with going home and telling my mom I watched Harry Potter. It's like, you glean from that what you want.
Right. So
Yeah,
that was
sorry.
So that actually kind of goes sort of to my question, because like Dan would a lot of times have to hide shit, and then sort of like even listening to, and this is where I was going to go, like listening to heavier music that was under sort of the Christian umbrella of like Solid State, Tooth and Nail, things like that, where it's more faith based, but it doesn't sound like your Newsboys, your DC Talks and stuff like that. And especially at the time of metalcore kind of becoming what it is, what was sort of your entry point into heavier music, and how was it sort of received when you started probably getting more and more into it?
Dude, so actually this is funny because you mentioned Porter. I was nerding out playing Magic with him on New Year's, and we actually talked about this because Atreyu is a big part of that actually for me, which was really funny. So for me, it was we had the Flint radio station that played a little bit of everything.
Is that the Banana?
Yeah, the Banana. Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, that radio station, they played everything. Like they played Atreyu, they played Bullet from Valentine when Tears Don't Fall came out, and like they stuff that like our stations over here they don't get that quite that deep, right? Like they were playing all the Mudvayne stuff. Like they'll give you a little glimmer of hope every once in a while over here, but if it's they like their Shine Down and that more of the contemporary side of the rock genre, which to each their own. But like the Banana played everything. They didn't hold back. They weren't anything that was in the rock metal genre that was modern, because they weren't playing Guns N' Roses. They weren't doing anything that wasn't modern. Like if it wasn't in 90s or newer, and like in that genre, like the grunge genre and newer, they weren't playing it. Because Guns N' Roses, even though some of their stuff was in the 90s, like they were considered classic rock, and that's what they were on classic rock stations.
Right.
So for me, like I got into there was a group of people when I was in youth group that were into like Family Force 5 and Under Oath. When Under Oath just came out with They're Only Chasing Safety, and I got into that a little bit. I had some neighbor kids when Hybrid Theory came out, and this was like the first time I ever heard a guttural, like not even really a guttural, but a scream, right? They're playing Hybrid Theory, we're outside playing basketball. I come inside, and I was like, "What's that garbage?" I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's the future of music. Who knows? Like, obviously I didn't say that because my mom back then, she's changed. She's a great grandma. I'll say that. To preface this, I would have slapped the absolute dog shit out of me back then. She hasn't changed. But she is a great grandma. But yeah, no. So like it was one of those where like I heard that I'm like, okay, I like Linkin Park. Like I like this sound. This is interesting. Like I remember like on the radio hearing Ball with the Ball the first time, man, and that call, like mosh call, right? Like what the hell is this when he just screams, "Get in the pit and try and love someone," or whatever the hell he says. That's what I've always heard. So hopefully it was wrong. Yeah. But he screams that out, and I'm like, and then he goes into this that at the time, I mean, it still holds up. It's a gnarly ass breakdown. It's the only reason I won't go to a Kid Rock concert. Political views aside and all that other shit, I don't really care. I don't want to go because I don't want to end up ending the life of a bunch of 60-year-olds who are there for summertime in Michigan. When they play that song and that riff hits, like everyone's gonna die right now. Yeah, so I went on that. Like, they got introduced into that, and then there were some kids on the bus, man, that would burn CDs. And I remember they burned Death Grip and Curse, and Mudvayne's LD50. I got into that, and like, that's all I would listen to. And again, hid that shit. Then when I got, that was my junior, senior year of high school. So like I only had 2 more years living at home, and then when I got into college, it was all that was when BitTorrents were a thing, and you're in a giant LAN giant network. So everybody's computers at the time was all P2P. People didn't know, so like you could, if it was on the network, it showed up on your computer, and you could listen to it. So like I started getting into As Lay Dying and Under Oath, and just really got into it. But the stuff that really, the band that really got me into it, and it was a fun moment this year at Upheaval. It was Soil. So the singer of Soil is back to fronting Drowning Pool. So when Drowning Pool was playing, he was out there, and I was behind him holding him up on the barricade, which was a really cool moment for me, because I remember the first time I ever heard the song Halo. Dude, that album, Scars, is just untouchable. That is a no-skip album for me. When they got back together, they played at the Machine Shop, and my buddy Zach and I went, and they played almost every single song off that album, because it was when Ryan got back with the band, and it was just an insane show to see. And we come out, the guy's got this voice of just this giant monstrous man, and you see him, and he's like comes up to maybe my belly button. He's probably 5'8" range. Then it's just like, oh, dude. And it was crazy because like he's not screaming. That's just that's his vocal delivery, and it's how he sings, and it's his voice. And it was just like, I was like, what is this? And then the radio station started playing X's and O's and Tears Don't Fall, and I'm like, what is this? And I remember, even Face Down by Red Jumpsuit.
Yeah,
that little middle part where he just starts doing the screaming, and I'm like, okay. And then from there, it was just like that. The vocal delivery was really cool to me, but what always got me was that double bass drum, man. And just like, what in how, and then, and you start listening more of that, and then from there it got into like August Burns Red and Devil Wears Prada, Haste the Day, and just like just went down that rabbit hole. Found a couple friends in college on the football team that were into that type of music, and just dug deep and never looked back. So yeah, that's kind of my full circle story of how I got into it, at least.
So something I want to kind of bring up, just I think it's interesting, especially given the breadth of what you've said of working at Upheaval, kind of slowly just kind of integrating your way into working in the business in a completely different facet of it so late in life, especially. I feel like for me, finding this was sort of a long path of trying to do the band thing, then booking shows, and then writing about shows, and then eventually doing this. So there's kind of like a path that you kind of see where it's like, oh, this is how you got here. But the thing that I think it's kind of interesting is, like, I don't think anyone really thinks of, like, I want to be a security guard. I want to work at venues. I want to do that side of things. But then you do it so well, and I'll say that you do it so well that essentially you sort of become the face of the venue, and you yourself as a security person keep having these viral moments of people capturing the show, as we often do with people on their cell phones. But then subsequently, the internet being what it is, it's, oh, here's this guy, this tall security guy singing with JT from Hawthorne Heights. Here's this dude, blah, 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 doing all these things. Like, you've had, by my account at least, probably not just on a local level, but like a big on the internet kind of level, probably at least 3 to 4 pretty viral moments just from doing your job the way you described it. And subsequently, like I said, people then I see commenting, oh, that's Dale from the intersection. That's Dale from here. That's Dale from Michigan. That it's kind of like you're kind of becoming bigger than your venue, bigger than your profession. How has that been to navigate, and kind of then adversely the other side? Actually, I'll have you answer that, then I'll ask you the follow-up question.
So it's my manager at the intersection actually kind of had this, and it's kind of a vulnerable topic for me, because like a lot of people look at it and they go, man, because in when I'm doing barricade, like I work with people, and hopefully some of the guys that work with me, they see this and listen this far into it, because this is something that I don't know how to communicate and convey all the time. So I'll be very real about it. Because as people when they work with me in the barricade, I can be kind of a prick, because to that, right, there's a lot of people who have recognized me. Like one thing, my highlight of the year this year, or this past, or in 2024, my highlight of the year was when Fit for a King came through with Chelsea Grin. I brought my son to that show, and he got to watch me. And then during God of Fire, they let me come up. Tuck had me come up on stage and play the bass part for the breakdown. That was awesome. Something we had joked about. Right up to that moment, I was catching crowd surfers. And a lot of people are like, oh man, that's getting to you. They got to your head. You act like that because of this. And I'm not going to disagree. Like, it does get to my head, but not in an egotistical way. It's not nothing about ego. Like, it's really cool. I still like to this day when people are like, oh man, you're the famous security guard. I'm like, I'm just Dale. Like, I'm not famous. And like, I have people like, no, you're famous. I'm like, whatever. It's like, I'm just me. I'm just out here doing what I want to do. Like, it's cool. It's cool that people know who I am. And that's awesome. And I love the fact that people see me at festivals or see me at venues and they're like, oh, this is a safe face. I love that. Where it's gotten to my head though, is in a more humbling way. It gets to me because there's a lot of pressure behind it. Because of all of that, people, like, I can't make mistakes. And not that I want to, like, and it's just one of those where you have people come up to you and they go, oh, you're here. Like, I've had, people who are now friends of mine come up to me at festivals, go, oh, most festivals, man, security at festivals is usually pretty dog shit, but now I saw you're here, like, this is gonna be top notch, and then immediately following, somebody jumps the barricade, gets on stage, goes inside. So I
forgot about that.
I fixed that one myself, but that was not my mess. That was not my bad, but that was funny. But that is pressure, right? And it's not bad pressure, but it's something I don't know how to convey to people because when you're going to your peers, you're like, hey, my friend from this band said this thing, and they're like, oh, you're just bragging. It's like, no, I'm trying to explain this to you. So what it is, right, is I'm up there and I've always got people watching me. So I can't drop crowd surfers. I've got to be, even if I'm having a bad day, I can't have a bad day when I'm in the venue. It's the, I can be going, like, 2023 was one of my worst, like, mental health years I've ever really had. And when I go to the venue, I'm all smiles, I'm all happy, and it wasn't fake. It wasn't like putting on a facade by any means, but it was really just like being at a show is my happy place. But and I guess again, for any of the people who've ever worked with me in the barricade and think that I'm a dick, I do apologize. This is a lot of my motivation. There's I get a lot of people watching what we're doing, and I want to make sure we're doing the best we can. Because again, we mentioned the whole Alpha Wolf, stuff. There's a video I caught of, when Terror was playing down in Texas. You got a security guard who goes, no, not today, or whatever he did, and you see other stuff like that. And again, you see it through that small part, and if we make a mistake, that's the context.
Right.
If I have a bad moment and somebody catches me, because I had during Knocked Loose show, Drain was playing, had a crowd surfer come over. I'm going to grab the dude. He's about $160-ish. So just it's an easy pick for me, right? Like, go to grab him. He sees me coming. Dude, as soon as he sees me, he rolls and then does a flip and kicks me square in the jaw on purpose. And I'm like, he hit me right here solid. And it was pretty solid. It was a sick moment for me because, if you ever get kicked square in the jaw, most people, they kind of fumble a little bit. I just stood there, looked at the dude, grabbed him, and everybody around me, like all my peers who were on the barricade, look at me like, oh, okay. We just watched this dude kick Dale square in the jaw, and he just didn't flinch. And I get the dude down, and he's just continue to try to crowd kill, punches me twice in the forehead. I'm like, all right, bro, like I'm done now, But like, you have to keep your composure in those moments because again, like people didn't, the crowd didn't see the dude kick me in the jaw. They didn't see the guy kick me and punch me in the face twice or try. And again, he's into the music. It's part of part of hardcore. So I don't I'm a huge proponent of the hardcore scene. I'm all about it. I don't dance myself because a 6'8" windmill and a spin kick come out of my body. That's taking souls. Like we're not.
I believe they called it a turbine at that point.
Yeah, we're not here to take out 10 people with one movement. But I'm all about it, man. I love watching people just have fun and all that. But in that moment, right, I could have, I had every right to really defend myself, right? Because I saw a punch come, fist coming at my face, and I hey man, grabbed him and was like, hey, let's go, walked him to the edge, and he came back and did his thing again. But like, if someone would have gotten that that clip on video, it would have that could have went viral for the wrong reasons. And so, to really get into to answering that question is like, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like it's fun when people recognize me. It makes me feel like I feel good because people are coming up to me for the right reasons. And again, if people have seen me and if people had a bad experience with me, I want them to come up to me and explain to me what I've done, because I don't ever want to make anyone ever feel alienated. And I had there's a guy at the show, kind of segue a little bit. There was a guy he's a big dude like me. And he's messaged me about these things since then, because he's gotten talked to different venues. He's gonna understand, but he first couple shows I ever saw him at, he would stand, dude's like 6'5", 6'6", big frame like I am. He'd stand like this with his phone above his head, recording the whole show, dead center. And I was like, hey man, you gotta put your phone down. Whoa, like, and so dude had a chip on his shoulder about me. And then Upheaval a couple of years ago, dude's again my size, like over 300 pounds, starts crowd surfing. And as he's, and it's like five, it's like six dudes that would that you'd spot at a Cannibal Corpse show are the ones that are lifting him up. And this was the day that In This Moment was supposed to be the headliner at Upheaval. And so I get to the crowd, to the the rest of the fans that aren't all guys that are prepared for war, and he just drops. And he goes to get back up, and I look at him, and I stand on the barricade. I'm like, and at this point, he and I, like, he's pissed at me because this other thing that had happened, this moment is happening, right? So I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I walk from the barricade. I walk out in the middle of the crowd. And I think this might have been like during like Ice Nine Kills. I walk out through the mosh pit. I walk up to him and I go, what is your problem? He's like, hey, he gets into me. He's like, hey, everyone else is crowd surfing. You're letting them all do it. Why can't I crowd surf? I'm like, dude, it's just not safe for everyone. And I was probably a little more heated than that, but like well, actually, no. I was like, no, dude, it's just not safe. Like, he's like, and he's like, well, I'm a big dude. I can't help that. And I'm like, look, I'm a big dude too. I'm not gonna crowd surf. It's not like, go to Cannibal Corpse or like August Burns Red. Like, go to one of those shows. Like, I'll catch you. Let's go. But like, it's not and that's what people don't understand. Like, if we tell you not to crowd surf, at least in the Michigan venues, I'm not going to speak for other venues. Like the venues that I'm working at, if we're telling you not to crowd surf, it's not because like we don't want to catch you. Like, people have seen me grab a 300-pound dude like this. Like I had one vocalist from Taylor from Left to Suffer. He looks at me. I was like, dude, because he's a big dude too. And I was like, hey man, you want a piggyback ride? He's like, no. He's like, you could do it, but you terrify me. Like, what do you mean I terrify you? He's like, dude, I watched you one time. You caught two guys that were easy 220. You grabbed them both, one in each arm, and you brought them both down and just let them go. Like, no issue. I was like, oh, all right. He's like, you got that farm boy strength. I mean, probably use a different term, but we'll go with farm boy. Yeah, he's a good dude. I played it back in my head with a different term. But anyway, so like, so when we, telling people like, hey man, don't crowd surf, it's because like, you got to look at the crowd. Like what I do is I look at the crowd and I go, all right, what's the average weight in this crowd? I look at it like, all right, if you got, you look around, and for every, you look at a group, you look at a couple different groups, you go, all right, there's 10 people in this group, 10 people in this group, 10 people in this group. All right, that group, you got 2 dudes who are about 6'2". The rest in that group are, and they're about 200 pounds to 220. The rest of the people in that group, they're about $140 or less, $160 or less. Same. You go, okay. So average weight in this crowd is about 180, or about 175 or so. Like I'll go, we'll go. All right, let's go 40 pounds extra, and that's probably a safe weight. So if you're over 220 crowd surfing in that crowd, I'm probably going to tell you, hey, don't do it anymore. And I gauge that also off of like where people are coming, because like, you can see where the patterns are. Like it's not always dead center, right? So there's spots where like you'll see where the hot spots are, and yeah, and like you look at it, especially based on the venue. It also depends on like where everyone comes in, because like 20 in a row, everybody comes in to my right, so stage right, house left. So when I'm up at the barricade, they're coming over there. But at the intersection, everybody funnel. The door's here, so everybody funnels off to the left. So you get center and off and stage left. So house right, that's where a lot of people, they'll come through that way, and you're just watching it. But like if someone's crowd surfing through and the crowd drops you, that is no go. That you automatically get your rights revoked of crowd surfing for the rest of the time. Now, if it's because the crowd's dropping you because they weren't paying attention, that's different. And that's stuff that we're looking at. We're watching all of those things. Like there's so many factors, because I just don't you don't want people to get hurt. Like again, if you're at a metalcore show and people are like flailing and climbing up people like you're at a hardcore show, that's also something we'll talk to you about. Like, hey, I get that. Like it's metalcore. Like there's a push pit out there. Like, if there's not a push pit, we're dancing, and we got people that are just jumping back and forth. We got full on kung fu episode going on. Let's then by all means claw scrape, do whatever you got to do to get to the stage. And I'll also too like one of my favorite bands to work shows for is Terror, because there's one dude who's been to every single Terror show that I've worked, and he's looked at me, and I one time I almost did like the full on like Dirty Dancing lift, but I put him, I got him on my shoulder. Yep, I got him. I put him on my shoulder and I let him go to the mic and sing. And he taps me on the back, and I put him down and let him go. Because he's like, I want to get to the stage. I'm like, all right, bro, I'll hold you up here. Like, let's go. I want people to have fun. Like, I mean, you've seen it in real time, or you've seen people, clips of people doing it, where I've had, random people with bands just jump on my shoulders. I don't give a shit. I had one band earlier this year in 24, man. It was I'm not going to name the band, because I thought it was the funniest shit ever. I'm sitting there, I'm just doing my thing. I'm dancing. I'm not bobbing my head. I'm having fun catching crowd surfers. And I see something on my peripheral. I look over, and I don't know if the guy was trying to give me a high five or what, but just slapped me square in the face. And I was just cracking up. And a couple of my coworkers, this is at St. Andrews, a couple of my coworkers are like, they're cracking up. They're like, holy shit. And the other people are like, oh man, it's like, don't be a tough guy. Like, I mean, this dude wants to start a fight with you. Like, he's going to jump down and fight you. Like, I don't think the dude did anything. I didn't think anything of it. I was cracking up. In fact, I tried to find him later. I found one of his bandmates. I was like, hey, just let him know I found out something new about myself. I guess I'm into that.
Thanks for unlocking a new kink.
Like, hey, dude, thanks, bud. And like, no, I've had, like, I like all of that stuff, and I don't know, I have fun with it. I know I've kind of went away from your original question. I forgot what it was at this point. So
no, but I mean, like, so I think like the interesting thing, like, and why, like, other than this is just kind of people I enjoy talking to, and why we're doing it for like the week of 500. But it's also like, you know, like I've said to you several times, like what you do, it's such an like you said earlier, you know what it looks like when someone working security at a venue is fucking up. You know what it looks like when, you know, you have those aggro like door dudes or like bouncers at bars or whatever. Like, you know what the bad ones look like. But the thing is like, I don't think we take into consideration, like, I mean, it was interesting as you were talking about, and as soon as you said it, like me working door at Anchor and just kind of being cognizant of what's around me because of being a people watcher and just always making sure I'm paying attention to stuff. It's funny to hear you break down your job down to, okay, so I know that people at the intersection come in from this way, so all my crowd surfing and my funneling is going to happen here. It's not something I would have ever thought of, but as soon as you said it, I was like, I started thinking all the shows I've been to where like they're packed and there is, and it's like, no, like pretty much dead center into stage left, but like you're right, that's where it's all coming from. And I've never really thought of that. And as you said that, it's like, okay, like you're looking at it almost as like how I would studying like film, like where it's like, okay, so let's start picking apart where this is happening so I can be more prepared, better at my job, all this kind of stuff. I don't really know that anyone has maybe broken down being a security person at a venue down to like, all right, so the flow's going to come in from the left. You know, if we have, you know, whatever, like, you know, at the intersection, at least I can say, like, because you have those two sections where you have like the elevated seating, it's like, okay, I say this because I've literally watched it happen with Rush and another friend of mine, Dylan Chippy, during Knock Loose. Like, we had a booth in the back or a table, and then they're like, yo, during Counting Worms, we're gonna fucking jump off of this and like head walk on people. And I was like, I mean, I wouldn't, but all right. Right, I'll film it because it'll be funny, and I don't think either one got more than a shoulder, and then just fell because no one was ready for it, and all that kind of shit.
If they're on, you know, that
but it's a thing where they were. And so it's a thing to me where listening to you explain that, it's like, that's funny. I never would have thought of it from such a more calculated way of looking at doing my job, when in your mind all you're thinking is look around, try to see if someone needs help or whatever, and subsequently when I see a body, okay, now I gotta grab it, that's my job. To think about it from such a more of a mental state of how you're going about it is really interesting to me. So to me, that's part of the interest of like having someone that does what you do on, because it's a completely different side of the industry and a part of the show going experience that I don't think we ever really think about. But like I said, as soon as it's done wrong, we know what that looks like, and we can articulate like why this person sucked and why they weren't doing what they should have been. But I don't think we take into consideration the job itself and those that are actually there to do it the way it's supposed to be done. Kind of segueing a little bit off of the actual intangibles of the job, but more to a byproduct of the job itself, and something that, you know, I do and have thought of a lot from doing this and being on this side of it. You know, you get to kind of know a lot of these different people and these bands that you've looked up to, and for lack of a better term at times, I think idolized at some point. And I think there becomes this sort of interesting thing within us where you kind of have to navigate that, because you're like, this is someone now that I'm growing a relationship with and becoming friends in some sort of capacity, whatever that looks like, wherever it is. But then there still is that part where you're like, but I'm still a fan. And when I see these guys play, and especially a song that's so old, like, and it just takes me back to being a kid in high school or whatever, listening to this song, as like, you know, you were saying, playing basketball with my friends. Like, and the first time I heard The Poison by, you know, I want to say Bring Me the Horizon, that's the wrong band. From God damn it. Yes.
Dude, Tears Don't Fall. Dude, that whole like
that whole EP. I remember getting the EP and being like, Jesus Christ.
Four words Choke
Upon. Yep.
Dude, that intro.
Yeah, I went back and listened to that record the other day, and I was like, because like the Poison Ascendant, I wasn't never really big on Trivium, but that Poison tour, I really want to go see.
Dude, I'm not working that show. I will be attending that show.
Yeah, I gotta, whenever I finally can get some money rolling back in, I gotta get tickets for that.
Dude, Ascendancy, that was another one of those albums that one of my friends in high school gave me. And so like Pull Harder and The Stranger Your Martyr, I'm like, what is this? And I'm like losing my mind, and that's what I was telling Porter about was because we were talking about like my favorite Atreyu song is, it's not a great one. It's great to me, and so a lot of people will find it as a great one, but it's Ain't Love Grand. And we were
Great
talking
song.
about it, I just love the intro. I love just the clean vocal, like the singing is like Brandon's voice is it's magnificent on that. And then you get into that very like 2000s emo, like screamo vocal delivery, which it's look, you listen to other stuff of that era, it's very similar. It's got that choppy cadence, and I'm like, this is gnarly. And I love that song, and but yeah, sorry, there was one of those fun.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, I mean, that's a great example, and the same person kind of has made me have that realization. Like, I think one of the last times, like, I just found the set list somewhat recently, but going to see Atreyu on like the 20th anniversary tour they were doing a handful of years ago, and they played some tiny ass club in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, or wherever the fuck it was. And it was a thing like getting to hear a lot of the deeper cuts off of the Curse, and even like off of a Death Grip. They played 5 Shots of Vicodin, and then ended up doing Untitled Finale on that run, like back to back basically. And it's like those are 2 of my favorite songs on both of those records, and like never get played. And it was a thing where like hearing those songs, I'm like transported back to being 15, 16, 17, listening to these records, trying to learn them on guitar and stuff. And then I look out, and because part of the deal to get the set list is Porter's like, I better see you crowd surfing at some point so I can get it to you. But then that was the thing, is like I had no problem going to crowd surf during these songs I love, but then it was kind of weird because like then there's Porter and like Dan and like Travis, and like now they're people I know, and then it just kind of breaks your brain a little bit where you're just like, okay, I'm having a moment of nostalgia, but then I'm being brought back to present time, and these are people I know, and now they're friends, and it's kind of a very weird thing to traverse. And I don't think unless you've kind of gone through it and with someone or something that you feel so heavily attached to from a fan perspective, and then kind of transitioning into that to the relationship now being one of friendship, it's just really weird to kind of navigate. And I always think it's interesting to kind of pick people's brains of like, how do you deal with that? What is going through your head?
So for me, like for anyone who ever works at a venue that wants to meet their favorite bands, the cheat code is snacks, treats, and food. That's how it started for me. Like to make the friends that I did. Like obviously people started noticing because I'm I was I'm headbanging while people are crowd surfing, and I think my first big I ended up having to get what was Twitter. I had to get an account because I was so most of the shows I work are shows that I would normally just go to. I'm a fan of most of those bands, but I was working Fit for a King down in Elevation, and so it was that lineup was just nuts. It was a Void, Hollow Front, Silent Planet, Fit for a King. This is early 22, and Tuck comes crowd. So during Silent Planet set, a bunch of crowd surfers coming, and Tuck just comes out of nowhere and starts helping us catch crowd surfers. So after the set, we go and we have a conversation with him. We're like, "Hey man, appreciate that." And I'm sitting there, I'm just having a conversation with this guy that come and help catch crowd surfers, but I also know who he is, and he's in Fit for a King, which is a band that like me and the other guy who I was working with at the time, like we're standing there, we're both like, this is nuts, because like this is a band that we both love, and we were super excited for the show. And we're like, hey, for like our liability reasons and stuff, we got it. And I looked at him, I was like, but dude, if I start messing up, like feel free to come in and let me know. And he comes crowd surfing, and it's the first time I ever did it. He comes crowd surfing me, I grab him, and I turn, and there's part of the video, I grab him and I put him on the stage. My boss was like pushing his butt up, but I put him right on the stage, because as what happened was, as I'm catching him, he goes, all right, I'm good. I go, nah, dude, this is payback for earlier. And I put him on the stage, and we start cracking up. But that was an aside to the actual point. So that one of the supervisors at the time, that was her favorite band. And so like a month leading up to the show, I was like, look, I talked to our boss. I was like, look, we need her to have the day off. And like I text him about it like a couple days before. Like, don't schedule her. Like, she's going to attend the show, and I'm going to bring a bunch of food to celebrate it. So like I brought, I think, just pulled pork and mac and cheese and stuff like that. I just had it in the back. Brought some, like, I think either mini cheesecakes or cookies. Just brought just for security. It was just for us. And before the show, we're all back there eating, and the tour manager from Fit for King, Brian, he comes back and asks me a question because Dakota, who was in Holofront at the time, had some friends coming in, and Dakota comes back, and this is how I became friends with him. And that's one of my favorite friendships of someone who, again, a fan of music and being friends with them. But he comes and he sees the food and he goes, "Can I have some mac and cheese?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." And I ended up, like, he came back, was eating food with us, and then, you know, later that year they did their hometown show, and I brought, you know, brisket, and that's how I met the dudes and archers, and all of that, like, just hanging out, having all this food, and just, you know, I bring random cookies, like, take cookies to Upheaval, right? And just random people, like, see if I know someone in the band, like, "Hey, you want a cookie?" People don't say no to cookies. It's been an easy icebreaker for me, because, again, you know, I'm a very large man. Most people see first thing they don't say, "Oh, hey, look, this guy, I want to give him a hug." They're like, that dude can kick my ass. And it's like, no, probably wouldn't, probably can't. I'm just big. I'll fall on you. You know, and so that's how I navigated that. But yeah, man, I've met some of, like, I was actually thinking about this because I've been putting off doing like a 2024 recap of like my top five bands of all time, top five bands that because everybody, like, it's like, man, you got a lot of favorite bands. Do you know how big of a genre metalcore is? Like, yeah, I got like 15 favorite bands. You know, there's bands that I'm starting to listen to that are my favorite today,
right?
And my favorite this month. But like I've had the pleasure of working all of my top five favorite bands. I've worked a good chunk of some of my top five bands of all time. And it's really crazy because I have made friends with some of the people that are in my top five. And either I've made friends with the people in the band or people in their crew. And, you know, one of my favorite bands of all time is Oh Sleeper. And, yeah, I love Oh Sleeper, man. And for me, that one's really crazy because I ended up at in 2023 Oh Sleeper did the 4 shows with Haste the Day. Their drummer and I became friends earlier that year, and so when I went to the shows, like, I talked to him like a month before because they were he was playing with his other band at the Machine Shop. And so, like, I talked to him there, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be at these shows. I'm super excited. Like, do you want to link up?" So we exchange numbers, and we get there to the show, and I can tell you the band. I feel awkward name dropping. So it's Zach from Dayseeker. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I think that's one of the things I try not to do with people for this. I guess it's perfectly cool, but yeah, no, I've met So again, like Oh Sleeper, so the drummer of Dayseeker and again, that's becoming a favorite band of mine. Again, that camp, everyone in that camp, I've been fortunate enough to get to know throughout the past year or two. They were on Shiprocked, and I was their little barnacle, or large barnacle, following them around a lot. So I appreciate them suffering my wrath of being clingy. But like, so I go down, we go to the shows, and he's like, "Hey man, we're hanging out over by the venue." So they had a camper out there, so we go and hang out. And I got to meet the guys in No Sleeper and hit it off with everyone in the band. And one of the guys that was with them, super awesome guy. He's a friend of everyone in the band. He's a friend of mine. And this year, earlier this year, they did So What Fest. They were playing, and I was like, dude, I'm thinking about doing this, and I sent Shane, the guitarist of O Sleeper, a text, and my buddy Brandon, who's their mutual friend of all theirs, and sent him a text too, and he's like, well, you got a place to crash, and come on down. So like, I ended up going down, and hanging out with the guys in my favorite band for a weekend. Got our buddy's birthday was the following week, so I ended up go to a pool party, and I'm sitting in a circle playing, terribly trying to play guitar with Shane and Seth and singing songs, and I'm like, what happened? I never would have expected, this in my life. And so like, there's moments where I have that where I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. But then you just take it in. And that's my thing, is like, I live in that moment. Like, you and I, like, those are like, I don't take a lot of pictures. You and I talked about this last year. And that was why, this whole past year I've cataloged every show that I've been to, some better than others. A lot of it was living in the moment. So, but I try to get a picture as often as I could with a friend, but those are moments for me too, where I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll bust out my phone, let's take a picture. Like, I'm not going to ruin that moment, for clout.
Right.
And because that's how it would come across. And at least in my mind, and I don't need that. That's not what it's about. Like, I have friends that are in bands that I've listened to for 15, almost 20 years. And I'm grateful for all those friendships. I'm grateful for to some extent, them tolerating me. It's the biggest thing is like, they're people. That's it. They're people. They do something that you find passion in, and it's an outlet for me, right? That's what it is. And that's all they are. They're an artist in an environment that I'm a huge fan of. But they are people, and I found when you get to just talk to people as people, and you don't trauma dump, you don't put them up on a pedestal, that trauma dumping is the biggest way to turn people off. Like, it's cool that, it healed your heart through your through a terrible moment. But if I have to hear that 500 times in a day, that's going to be depressing as hell. Just food for thought.
Yeah.
And like, because I've been to some of those meet and greets, like being security nurse, like, holy shit, like, that's awesome, I'm glad, but man, if I'm that person, I had to hear that 14 more times today. Like, shit, man. Like, man, like, how do you process that, right? Like, if you had 100 people in a week come up to you and be like, hey man, I had this abusive situation, I had this terrible thing, my friend, took their life, all of this, like, you hear that many times in a week, it's like, whoo, that starts to get really heavy. And that's, I've got friends that they're going through stuff, and I'm just there, like, they're friends. Some I've created. There's people that I get to see once or twice a year, and I would do anything for. I mentioned Dakota earlier of Hollow Front. I'm one of those people. I kind of I go with the flow with friends. Like, you and I have become very close in the past couple of years. I consider you one of my better friends. Like, probably one of my closest friends at this point. Like, you know a lot about me, and that's how I am. Like, I keep a few friends, but like, Dakota has become a really good friend of mine, and he's a phenomenal musician, and it's been interesting to be a part of his life and be a part of his story as it's been unfolding and stuff like that, and but being a friend and being someone who if he's struggling, like, I'll send him, like, he's on a short list of people that every once in a while I'll send a random good morning text to, right? I'll do that with friends. I'll send them Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, or but there was a time for almost a year where every day I'd wake up in the morning and send like 5 or 6 people good morning, beautiful, or I'd send, like, for him I'd send something like, hey man, crush the day, like, like a cougar crushes someone's head between their thighs, like, horrible things like that. like just really cheesy shit. But like, another one of my buddies, every once in a while, I'll just shoot him a text, and he's like, "Dude, do you have the best timing?" He's like, "Today was absolutely trash, and I just needed that little pick me up." But like, it's to go back to that question. How I navigate it is I just read the room. I've been I've been very fortunate to have someone to have made the friends that I've made. People trust me. Like, I've been a part of conversations that I probably should not be a part of. I've heard things. I know things that are like I'm very fortunate, and I feel honored to know some of that stuff, and you just take it as what it is like, these people are also away from home all the time, and it's nice for them to be able to go somewhere and see a familiar face, and like have that that anchor spot, where they can like that where they can look at that and go, oh, this person, when I'm going through Michigan, I'm going to see Dale, and I'm going to be able to just be myself no matter what's happening with the day. I'm just going to be able to go and shoot the shit with them, and that's what I really aspire to be, is just as a friend. Like, I'm a fan, but I want to be a friend first. And the other part for me that's been really cool is like, you know, like I mentioned how the food thing started, but like, it started being where, I mean, I remember was it the Attila Gideon show where you're like, it'd be nice if I get some of that food. I'm like, all right, come on, bud, come on, you're back there, But like when some of my favorite bands come through, man, like I'm putting down some brisket, some mac and cheese, and other fun stuff, and we've also been fortunate enough. I've had some friends I've made in Michigan bands, some very national touring, bigger bands. We've done like Friendsgiving, or just had a random, hey, come on over for the weekend, we'll have brunch. And it's fun because like I like being that that safe space where if you come over to my house, you're like, yeah, there's gonna be people here that are fans of yours, but you're not gonna be punished. We're gonna be able to just chill, do whatever you want to do, and just relax. And the cool part, like, I know we kind of shit on Holland because some of the people suck, but like the cool part about Holland is like I'm 5 minutes from Lake Michigan, and a lot of people are oh, it's just a big lake. No, it's a big lake, and it feels more like an ocean than anything. And anybody who wants to challenge that, feel free to let me know, and I will take you to the lake, and you will look at it and go, oh, I understand. You cannot see across this thing. If the stars align and it's a perfectly clear night, you can see the glow of Milwaukee and Chicago.
Yep.
But that is about all you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, the easiest thing, it's just about, just like, if you're a fan, don't make it about you. Like, you want to be, it's cool. Like, oh man, your music healed me. Your music did this for me. But like, it's like, oh dude, I've been a big fan of your music. Like, it was one of the first things I got into. But like, hey, how are you today? Like, how's the tour going? There's actually there's a TM that I became friends with, and he the first time I met him, he was on a Chae tour, when that was back in 22, end of 22. So it's November 1st, 2022 is their headliner through the intersection. There was a 30-ish person brawl on the middle of the floor, which was gnarly as hell. Yeah, dude, middle of the set, a giant fight of like 30 people broke out.
Oh, wait, I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Show had to be stopped. I forgot about that.
I jumped the barricade. That was the first time for that. Hopefully the last time. Don't jump. But when I'm standing on top of the barricade and jumping in, I remember Brandon stopping the show and then going, "Oh shit!" But I get in the middle of 30 people, I grab them, and I would like just get in the middle, throw like 5 people at it from each hand, throw them aside. I'm like, all right, next person that wants to step up, you're stepping to me. They're like, oh, I'm just yelling. And then there's this guy over on the side who he's like, I just hear Brandon go, throw him out. And I look over and see this dude. I'm like, well, all right, what happened? He's like, he hit that girl. I'm like, all right, cool. So we're walking around like, dude, why'd you hit that girl? He's like, well, she hit me first. No, it gets better. I think I've told you the story, but it's like, I go, dude, she hit you first? Like, oh, all right, well, why'd she hit you? Like, and dude's like really drunk. He goes, well, I grabbed her tits. I'm like, come on, man. Like, dude, you had that coming.
Gotta respect the honesty at least.
Like, you had her. Well, then we're walking out. Like the TM that I'm talking about. Like, he's having and I'll get to the relevance of that. This was just a fun side story again. Like my fun ranting. He walks up and the guy like lunges at him. And I'm like, and I get separation. This was when the first time that I really started to realize like how I had to carry myself was because my boss goes, hey, what? He's like, let's wait till we get outside and see if he does anything squirrely, but like, don't. He's like, you can't respond that way. And I was like, okay, why? He goes, look around. I look back and there's like 15 people with cameras, like phones out. I'm like, oh, all right then. You know, and you realize that stuff. And not that I was going to hit the guy, but I was creating separation because I didn't know what that guy was going to do.
Right.
I don't want him to hit a random, touring person or just a random person in the venue. Like, you can hit me. Like, I've had people hit me. It's not great. I don't like it. I got punched in the throat a couple times.
Not a new kink you're into?
No, getting punched in the throat is bottom tier of fun things. That was in the bottom of my list of things I like. But
along with bottoming, ironically.
So their TM, Sam, he's done a bunch of other bands, and I run into him all the time. But I walked up to him earlier in the day, and you just ever kind of walk up to someone, you just kind of see they're just not having a great day. And I was like, hey man, I was like, how are you doing? He's like, not great. I'm like, well, anything I can do for you? And later on in the day, I just came and checked up on him, and he told me earlier, because I was like, because I collect guitar picks and stuff, and somehow that came up in our conversation. He's like, well, at the end of the show, come talk to me. And I go up to him. I was like, hey, I was like, it's like, any chance? I was like, also, like, how are you? He looks at me. He goes, dude. He's like, the world needs more people like you. I'm like, I don't know where that's coming from, but I appreciate it. He's like, you just actually give a shit, and that's, going back to everything. It's like, that's what really matters. It's like, put yourself aside and put the other people first. Like, if you're gonna just in any friendship in general, but like, if you want to be there and you want to be a fan, be a fan. But if you're a friend, be a friend. And I'm grateful to have been able to kind of bridge that gap with a lot of bands that that I've listened to, and like, I never thought ever that I would have friends in some of these bands, that did help me through some of my darkest times. There's and there's a time for those conversations. It's just not the first time you ever meet those bands.
True.
And I've had some of those conversations with people, right? And we get to have, but you get to have it with your friend, not a stranger. And it's such a different experience because, like, if you just trauma dump to a stranger, like, they just have, like I said earlier, right? It's like, well, okay, what do I do with this? Like, all right, they're there, friend. Like, get a little pat on the back, like, okay. But if you're like to a friend, you're like, man, wow, okay. And like, because at that point, there's walls that are broken down. They understand you and more about you as a person, and they get to see who you are. And for for me to be able to go, yeah, this was I had a dark spot in my life, and I was able to listen to to your music, and there's this one lyric, and it's always funny because like there's a song on an album for one of my favorite bands, and it's they're one of the guys who we've talked about that album. He's like, this is our worst album. I was like, yeah, but this song, dude. And I'm like, like, you get to talk about what that song has done for you, and it's like maybe that brings a little bit more of a good memory, or brings more, something more to that album for them too. And it's fun. It's fun to be a part of that, and to be able to have those conversations as a friend. But yeah, as a fan, I don't know. Once I bridge that gap, I don't really look back. But I will tell you though, you get me at a Devil Wears Prada show, and they play Dogs and Grow Beards again. You're gonna see me lose my mind. And I've made friends with those guys, and I have some, like I said, I was having gardening conversations with Mike, and then I go and see their show, in one day, and then I go out and they see me, watch me just throwing down in the pit, and he sees me and just starts cracking up, and like I will always be a fan when you're playing that music, but after that music stops, like we're buddies again, and that's the other part too, though, that's something that for me that's gotten to be interesting is I've had situations. And you were with me when I got my nose got a little crooked at the Ghost Inside show. Hanging out with my friends who are in a very popular band. They're a band that's growing in popularity. And,
local band to us, technically.
Yeah.
Home state.
Right. I'm not going to name drop this one because the story doesn't go great.
For me?
Oh yeah, that was funny. I think she still hates you.
Yeah, probably. Probably. That's why I was like, that's where I thought this was going. I don't give a shit.
No, it's when I got my nose broke, dude. Because I look at it, it's like got a little crookedness to it. During that Ghost Inside show, so hanging out with you, hanging out with those friends, like introduce you, and we're all hanging out, and I'm standing outside the pit, and dude decides he wants to fight me. No reason. It like starts, kicking at me. I push him back, and this little skirmish happens. And dude sucker punches me in the face. The one guy who started, he gets thrown out. But then, the rest of the night, I'm watching over my back because they didn't throw everybody from that party out. And then other people started coming back in. So, like, that's the shitty part, though, for me, where it's like, because everybody knows who I am, and then because I have these friends, like, there's certain times where you have to, like, all right, well, I don't want to draw this negative attention to my friends. And, like, so, I text them, like, hey, I'm going to chill over here. This is what just happened. And they check on you, and they're like, hey, everything okay? But, you kind of have to separate yourself. And, those are the times where it does suck. But, no one likes having to get punched in the face for no damn reason. And then just because, two people are drunk, and then not be able to hang out with your friends anymore just because that would be the worst thing, is just hanging out with friends, and all of a sudden somebody who has a vendetta against me just wants to try to jump us. And like, because even you, I told you, I was like, hey man, this just happened, like you should just go chill. And you were just like up in that little, reserved seating area, because like, don't just stay away from me for the rest of the night. Like,
See, I'm used to that, and have been used to that for a long time, because one of my best friends, Trevor's brother, Jason, is like a punk kid. Like when we moved to Lansing, it was so funny. Like we were so into the same music. That's how we became friends in high school, had literally the giant CD cases.
Yeah.
We were like, let me see yours. And then like noticed that we had the exact same CDs, basically organized the exact same way. And you're like, oh, you have Crossbreed too? I didn't think anyone knew about them. Oh, so you're really onto like some new shit. Okay.
Did we become best friends?
Yeah. So it became this thing where it's like, when we moved to Lansing, I got more into more metal and extreme versions of metal and so forth, and he went more punk. Okay. And, would have the fucking 2-foot mohawk and all this shit. And, we would go, like, I remember we went to an As I Lay Dying show. I think it was at Intersection way back in the day. Okay. And I know one song off of Shadows of Security had come out, but like the album, it was between Frail Words and Shadows Are Collapsed, officially coming out forever ago.
Yeah.
And I remember probably even like 05, maybe 06.
Even over here.
Yeah. And we were, like I said, living in Lansing, and I remember us coming to the show, and he had put up his hair, and like I was like, we're stage left over by the railing, but like by the barricade, back before you go to the backstage area. And I remember at one point, like just a bunch of like what I would probably say was probably part of our local Courage crew at the time. I was like, hey man, you're getting scoped out real hard right now. I was like, I think you should stay back by like the bar or where there's like venue people.
Yep.
And he was like, why? I was like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm pretty sure I can imagine they think that you shouldn't be here. So I have a feeling because we're close to where a pit will be eventually, I would just say we should probably take in the show from a different vantage point. But it's a thing, like that shit happens, man. Like, I mean, I had
those days, by the way.
No, I mean, me neither. Like, I remember, I didn't know you were at the show until we were talking about this memory that I had of like something like that happening. Where at the Korn 20th anniversary of the first record, or maybe 20th, with Suicide Silence opening at was it the Fillmore? Yeah, and someone comes up to Trevor, ironically, as I'm standing next to him, and this guy's like, "Man, we should fucking bounce this kid out of here when the lights go down." And Trevor's like, "Okay." And then the guy turned around to like grab a drink or something. He goes, so here's what this guy's going to do. Here's what's actually going to happen. When the lights go down, he goes to grab you and he thinks I'm going to help grab him. I'm going to grab him and fuck him up and throw him across the room.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, I was in the pit. I remember that. Like,
we were.
And again, I knew who you were, but I didn't know you. And because I remember that going down. Me and my buddy Zach were in there, and that pit got It
got wild during the fucking songs playing over the PA. Like I remember when they played Slipknot and people were like treating it like Slipknot was literally playing like right then and there.
That was one of the times, man, where like anytime any venue during changeover, if they play break stuff, I'm always just terrified because of that show. I believe that was one of the changeover songs, and it got nuttier during like. I don't know if it was that one, but there's been one that I went to where it got nuttier during changeover when they played break stuff than when the bands were playing. And you're like,
yeah,
what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
That
was one that whoever was doing the changeover music for that, like everything was just ramping up in intensity. And by the time they played that Slipknot song, I think it was Before I Forget This or whatever the Push My Fingers. That song started and people were just kind of like the dun 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 like on the drum parts. People were just kind of starting to like you could feel the room bouncing behind you and people were singing and you're just like shit, man, we're fucking in it. Like the show's not even happening. This is just changeover bullshit. And then it's like the band came out and did Blind, because they're playing the record as it exists, and you're just like, what the fuck, man? Like holy shit. And it's like for a bunch of late 30s, early to 50s people, I don't think I've been in a room that was so like just ready for some shit to pop off, like to really be immersed in the live experience than that show.
It wasn't even cold out, but there was a wall of death during Blind, if I remember correctly.
I mean, I'm shorter than you, so I was focused. I was so focused on the show at that point.
I was in the pit. Like I had to get out of the pit like during Clown. I think it's. That one, yeah, no.
Clown's like one of the first like couple.
Yeah, no.
Off the record, like track 4.
Track 4. I had to get out. Yeah, at that point, I had to step out of the pit. It was a brutal pit. Like it was violent, and it was a violent push pit. But it wasn't a whole bunch of dudes having a pissing match. It was just that many people just losing their absolute mind, and it was crazy.
Yeah. It's. And I feel like that's kind of the thing to me, like an experience that you get to have, and subsequently I kind of get to now that I'm allowed sort of in between the stage and the barricade, at least intersection. That it's crazy, like to be able to see that. Like I think one of the biggest things I've ever said, like the first time I really experienced that volleying of energy between a band and the crowd, was the Under Oath reunions at the Orbit Room when they did Define the Great Line or They're Only Chasing Safety and Define the Great Line.
Yeah,
and I got last minute was asked to take photos because the photographer couldn't show up and I was doing the show review and I was like, all I have is my phone. And they're like, just go, you got to pass. So I went, took the photos, and I remember like, because I think they started with They're Only Chasing Safety. So like arguably the bigger of the two records. And like it had been 5, 6, 7 years since the band had gone on hiatus, which it was a stark contrast now I'm thinking about it from seeing them when Aaron had left and they played at the intersection with Times of Grace opening. And like no one was there. And Let Live opened and Jason jumped into the crowd wearing a trash can and basically drop kicked me.
Oh, dude, that show was so much fun too.
It was a lot of fun. No one was there, but it was
dude,
just so weird to be in between the band and just like I would take a photo and there'd be Chris just going ape shit on his like keyboards, and then I turn around and like it kind of was interesting that a friend of mine was literally on the barricade, and you just look around and everyone's equally sweaty going ape shit, and you're just like, fuck, man, there's a lot going on in this like little 4 or 5 foot gap. And for you to just probably experience that so often, you're probably so used to that volleying, but it's just so interesting to see it.
It's so like that, being able to see people have that much fun, just like it. There's so much joy. Like it makes me so happy. Like you get to like there's I could talk about the shitty horror stories all the time. Like, I got so many just like terrible things where I've had you walk in and you get random dudes, just 3 dudes in a fucking stall, like doing some type of drugs. And you're like, hey man, circle jerk's over, but like, you get crazy shit, where people passing out or having panic attacks, and like, but like just to watch the joy on people's face, like there, like it was one of those things. Like I used to struggle because like some of the shows that I work, are EDM shows, and I would struggle at them. And then you go up, and you think that people headbang at metalcore shows, dude? I've had to stand. There are many times I've had to stand on that barricade because it's going up 1.5 feet, and like the whole length of that barricade in unison is all. Everyone is just going. Like I watched one time. I watched somebody. The whole group did it down in elevation, and one of the lag bolts snapped and like sheared in half. And I had to hold it while I'm yelling for our crew people to come get another lag bolt in there. I'm holding this barricade with both hands, and the whole crowd's still going. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is the coolest shit ever. It's you get into it, and like again though, it's like I'm there for a show for the music and all that, but like you get to experience people being themselves, and like that's for me. In general, like music is the one place I've always been able to be myself and just be accepted. We talked about me growing up, having to be, you have to carry yourself a certain way when you grow up the way that I grew up. And then taking that persona that I've now created then to come to an area where it's polar opposite, and then go work in a very professional office setting with engineers. You and I've had conversation. I think I've actually probably not swore that much on this podcast than I normally swear. Like, or normally my normal speech is 1 or 3 F-bombs every other sentence or
Same.
Every other word. I normally sound like the little song that Jay does during Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. But like, so like being that in an office setting, like, I've had managers talk to me like, hey man, you gotta watch your language, people, it makes people uncomfortable. And again, in West Michigan, people are also just a lot more uncomfortable about it because, it's a very religious bubble. A lot of conservative people, like not necessarily conservative ideologies, but a lot of people who are sheltered and not brought up around that, and so it's intimidating in its own way having that with that language. Big reason that I've actually never gotten a tattoo. I got one piercing. That was because I woke up with that in college. That's a fun time, but never got a tattoo because again, in that, like, I've already got enough of an intimidating factor. My language is rough enough, and then again, if you have tattoos, like people see you a certain way over here. But being able to like, because that's the beautiful thing about music is like, it's a space that people get to, no one else. It's just you and the music, and you get to just be you. And so you're in a room of 2,500 people who are all just organically being themselves and not caring what anyone else around them thinks or what anyone else around them is saying or doing, and just all at the same time, collectively, in unison. You all are doing the same thing. You all are about the same exact thing. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to observe. And to be a part of that and share that moment with so many different people, so many different times, that's really what it's all about. And it's like, so, like you're saying, right? You get to see that energy. You get to see all that, the stuff that not everybody gets to observe. I don't know. Have you ever been in the barricade space when a band, they cut the lights and they, do the lighters or the cell phone thing nowadays?
Not from that vantage point,
Oh,
because
dude,
usually
I got
when I try to in elevation, it's a little bit easier for me. But the other thing is, I'm so trying to be cognizant of the little bit of space that I usually occupy
yeah,
that I don't want to be in someone else's way that's kind of tucked on the side of the barricade where I'm like basically at. And I don't want to be in your guys' way, or I don't want to be in front of like the touring camera person's way, the
right.
venue person. Like,
No,
so it's like when I see it,
cool.
I try to poke my head around that little pole or stand, like hurry up and try to stand on the stairs so I can try to see. Because I know it's got to look cool because I've seen it from 20 Monroe from side stage, like during Kill Switch, over being in Josh's area, where it's like I can see like the balcony and everything else, and it just looks cool. But to see it like when the house lights and all that shit are down, and it's just like all the cell phones, no. And I feel like it's got to be insane and really cool to see.
The best one. Again, next time, if it ever happens, if there's ever an opportunity, I see you, I'll pull you right in the middle with me because there's no risk at that point. Like there's no crowd surfers coming.
Usually. And if so, that sucks for them. That sucks for them.
The crowd's gonna let them die.
Where'd they go? I don't know. Ran out of lives, I guess.
The coolest one I've ever seen was a hometown show for Pop Evil.
Oh, okay.
Every single person in that room had their phone up. Like everyone did. There were no stage lights, no venue lights on, and that room was glowing. And being able to look out at it, it looked like it reminded me of when I was a kid and I would go up north and just look up at the stars. It was the most spectacular thing. And like that's the cool part for me is I get to be a part of the show in my own way. I get to see like I get
you're sort of seeing what the band's seeing.
I see what all the band's seeing, but people are also the amount of times that people come up to me, they go, "You personally have made this show for me." I'm like, I'm just singing and dancing and jamming. I had one. I've gotten it a couple times now where I've gotten actual emails forwarded to me from venues where there was one. It was when We Came as Romans opened up for In This Moment earlier this year or earlier last year.
20?
Yeah, 20. And that was my. So they've always had a third party do barricade, and so the home people weren't ever. I only got pulled in there like one time, but this one they were like, "We're gonna have you in barricade." I was like, sick. So it was my first like real nod to do barricade there, which it is what it is. They've always had they've had their reasons, and I respect all of their decisions that they've made, and they have me in there doing barricade and helping out now, and I love it. But it was crazy because it's my first go in there. And I get an email a few weeks later from the venue, and in there it's like, "Hey, whoever this person is, they're the tall person with long hair in the middle. They were dancing, singing, just having the best time. Like they are what you need to make sure you're hiring across the board." And like just for reference, and they took a picture of me and like added it in there because obviously the tallest guy in the barricade with the long hair who's dancing wasn't good enough description. They took a picture and then they took a zoomed in bit of that picture and circled me in red, and I was like, oh, this is such a great moment. Like, it was so cool. I had another one where it got it came back to me, but it was before it even got to me. It actually it was a patron at St. Andrews, and in St. Andrews I'm kind of like, so I worked for Live Nation through 20 Monroe, and like I'm kind of on loan to St. Andrews, even though I kind of that's kind of my second home. It's like I love working there. Intersection is home base. Like as far as like venues in Michigan, my favorite is like Intersection is sold out. The energy in that is untouchable. But then after that, it's immediately a tie for me. It's like Elevation sold out and St. Andrews sold out. Like those are just like that's an untouchable space. And there's something magical about St. Andrews sold out shows. Like also working barricade at one of those, that is absolute chaos because like we were talking about. I was saying, hey, the venue has different flows. That one has no flow. It is everybody
everywhere
all at once, and you just like I ripped my pants during Platinum. Also shout out to the Platinum for having the most chaotic shows I've ever worked. I have worked them 3 times. St. Andrews was the first. Blew up my pants because they had over 200 crowd surfers during like one song. It felt like, and it was nuts. Worked them down in Elevation again. There was the most crowd surfers during a set.
Did you not go to the one at the show? Sorry, cut you off. Did you not go to the one at Pyramid Scheme?
No, I didn't go to the Pyramid Scheme one.
Man, I've been a fan of Plotny for a while and have had landed on a couple of times. And that's the thing is like I feel like actually this maybe would be a good last question to end this on. But it was interesting because like I've been to like a festival dates of theirs, like going to Sonic Temple a couple years ago, and it's like I feel like only certain shows are just buck wild. It's not consistently across the board, like because like the Pyramid Scheme show, like their sound guy who was fucking phenomenal, and he does one of the things I love with band crews that they're of the size to have a crew, which is I love like Brandon from when he goes out with like did like Sound for a Mirror. He goes out with a bunch of other bands. He's actually coming through. He's going to be at Pyramid Scheme on the Born of Osiris tour that's ending in Pyramid Scheme.
Oh, is he? All right, reach out to him then.
So, but like he gets into it when he does all the fucking snare bombs and shit. Like he's like, I love when the crew is having as much fun as the band is, because they're the ones essentially kind of putting on the show that you're seeing. But it was crazy because like that Blonde New show at Pyramid Scheme, no barricade, no nothing, and I was like, this show's gonna be fucking bonkers. Not really, which surprised me. So when I saw the footage, I think of you posting during the St. Andrews show.
No, that was the pop-up show at the Loving Touch in Ferndale.
Okay,
that was the third one I got to work.
Okay, because I was gonna say like I always feel like I missed out on these wild plot news shows, and I'm like, where the fuck are all these people that are going wild at all these shows? And I guess it's just not here.
So that one, well, the Elevation one was nuts.
Was it? I just don't remember it being. I mean, again, my vantage point, I don't see it like you do.
Yeah, dude, I was
because I'm watching the band typically.
Yeah, that was the one where I had you off to the side.
Yeah.
So you were just chilling, but like, no, that one was nuts. But dude, the Loving Touch show was incredible. So no barricade. I never worked at that venue before or after that show. You just got a random.
It's an interesting venue.
Yeah, a random text from a buddy who was like, "Hey, you want to come work the show?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'll come work it with you." I was like, "Where am I meeting you?" He's like, "Oh, actually, I still got to work the show at St. Andrews, so you're just gonna go and meet with this person." I go, "All right." So I roll in, just raw dog it. Like venue, never been. I've only been there one other time before that. I go in, I'm like, "Hey, I'm Dale. I'm here to talk to this person," and they're like, "Oh. All right." I'm like, yeah, I've done, I catch crowd surfers and do all that. I was like, you got no barricade. Like, what do you want? They're like, well, they had these 2 other guys that they were, they were awesome to work with. They were not as well versed in that as others are that I've worked with, and but they were the guys that they brought in for the heavy crowd surf shows because. And I saw them. The only other show I went to prior to that was to see Invent Animate, and they had those 2 guys standing between the crowd and the stage at a no barricade show, trying to catch crowd surfers and bring them down. And so that was one of the things. Like, we don't want people on stage or this or that, but they're like, just make sure that nothing gets broken and everybody has a good time. So I go up to Miles, who might have been doing sound for them when at the show you're talking about, but he was their guitar tech. He does sound and other stuff at
Blanket. I guess is Blanket. Yeah. Okay, same guy.
Yeah, yes, awesome guy. He did front. I met him because he did front of house for Hollow Front. But so I go up to him and I was like, hey man, I was like, I don't know if you remember me, and he did. We're just chatting. I was like, all right, so what's the vibe we're going for tonight? He goes, these guys want it to be like an old school hardcore no barricade show, like stage divers, crowd surfers, everything. All right. So what's your, what do you, I was like, what is your criteria around that? Like, well, what do you mean? I was like, so when we get on the stage, what do you want us to do? I was like, obviously if this is what you want, we're not going to put anybody in front of the stage. So but if somebody's on the stage for too long, what do you want? It's like, I was like, my thing is I give them a 3 count, and then they get the old boot scoot. Whether I'm assisting them forward or I'm assisting them off the stage to the side. He goes, that'd be perfect. It was awesome because like that stage is tiny as hell.
It's only like 3 feet off the ground.
It's not, yeah.
If
Really, yeah.
If
So I'm standing in the back corner by, I think his name's Josh, the guitarist for Platinum. Or so during Invent Animate was opening. So what happened was they did this pop-up show because they did the Detroit Beartooth show, and the night of that Detroit Beartooth show or Royal Oak, there was a terrible winter storm that came through over here. So I actually had tickets. I was going to go see it, but it was an ice storm, so I couldn't make it past Grand Rapids. So I started to, and it was just terrible. Well, their Buffalo show was the next day. That got canceled because of that. You know, if we get shit on over here, Buffalo's getting 8 feet.
Yeah.
Because fuck Lake Erie.
Yeah.
So they were like, all right, cool. We're gonna do a last minute pop up show. So it was, Invent and Platinum were the two mid card bands on the tour. And they did it. So Invent Animate, I'm standing in the back corner, and I'd met those guys a couple times. I worked their show and interacted with them before. Their bass player Caleb, I've caught him crowd surfing and did the same, like put him up on the stage thing, which has now become like my favorite thing to do. And John started doing that now too. We had Mushroom Head through. He started laughing. So me and him were both just like grabbing vocalists and just sending them on the stage. And they're all cracking up. Because I mean, that stage is not short. It's like a 5.5 foot stage.
Yeah.
And so we're just like, all right, well, you can go up there. And I had one when I did it. Sorry to get segue, but I did one with Dave Stevens from We Came as Romans, and someone got a video of it, and you see him actually like stop this, like he's in the middle of singing, he stops and just starts laughing and then keeps singing the song. And then my favorite of those was earlier when I did Void was coming through. I think it was on the Dave Seeker tour. When they're coming through and I catch Benny and he goes, "Oh, hey Dale," in the middle of his song. But yeah, so going back to so again, it's a last minute show. It was $5 at the door, and I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't even think to text you. So I kind of actually feel terrible on that one now, because that's a missed opportunity. But I met up with Damon, one of Damon's friends, because I messaged him and Tyler, and like those guys, they were like, "Oh, we're doing stuff," and actually, I got Tyler good on that one because he's like, "Oh, I'm sending out." Or he's like, "I'm actually delivering merch." I was like, "Oh, did you get that package for D?" He goes, "D? D's nuts." He's like, "Oh no!" I was like, "Gotcha." But one of their friends, so we just road trip, man, and we went over there. And so I had him, his name's Isaac. I just had him standing side stage next to me. He's watching the whole show, having a blast. But I'm standing in the back corner, over by like the guitars, and I'm just waiting. See the crowd surfers coming, and I think his name's Marcus, the singer of Invent. He catches like the first one, and all of a sudden he sees like 3 or 4 more coming, and I'm just waiting. And he looks at me and kind of gives me that nod because it's like, that's a small stage. I'm a big dude.
Very tiny, yeah.
And as soon as I walk up, I'm in the back corner. People have had me on video where it's like, oh, I look like a little dude in the corner, and then I walk up and like everybody's, up to my elbow. And it's like, I grab the people down, and I'm like jumping around, moving around all the different dudes, and in the band, and trying not to hit the drums, trying not to bump the guitarist, and I was like, sorry if I was in your way. Like, dude, that was so much fun for us. I'm like, all right. So then, now Platinum is coming on. They're like Toledo, Detroit band, right? So this is like a hometown show for them. Last minute, 400, 4 to 500 cap room. This was between 350 to 5, right? So,
well, it depends on how egregious you want to be with your numbers.
It was oversold. It was nuts. It was nut to butt from front to back. Yeah, it was so hot in that room. Like they have the front glass windows. It was like a good quarter-inch of just wet. It was so hot. Like I was dripping sweat just standing there. And I'm in the back corner, and they're just coming, man. I'm just grabbing people, throwing them back out in the crowd, getting them. And now people are seeing me, so they're having fun. They're coming up. They're crowd surfing just to crowd surf to me, and I'm like, fuck. Dude, like I said, that was nuts. That was the funnest and most chaotic show ever, because again, it was no barricade, never worked at the venue, working with two guys I've never worked with before, and they were awesome. They, one, he stayed all the way stage right and just made sure that people weren't like trying to do anything stupid. And I just told those guys, I was like, hey, this is what they want. So if they're up there for longer than 3 seconds, I'm gonna go. But if they come over towards you, just corral them and either walk them down or ship them. And then one guy was just standing over by the stairs, so I just sent him over to him, and he would just walk him down. All right. But most of the people are like, we want to go. I'm like, all right, find the big dude, jump on the big dude. Go.
It's like May It Still Remains.
Dude, that was so much fun. We're like, I want to stage dive tonight. I got you, bud.
Well, I knew no one else is gonna. Trevor, actually, I don't think Trevor was at that show.
No,
actually, now I
Trevor
think about
was
it.
there. I think it was just me and you hanging out.
Yeah, and I think Bridget was somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I knew I wanted to do that, and I knew for the most part no one was gonna care. And I remember a guy who works at a local record store who's a pretty big guy. Used to like a couple of shows ago at Pyramid Scheme when they were kind of putting out, I think, Cease and to Breathe. So like years ago, probably like 07, 08, maybe a little bit later than that. No, definitely later than that. That'd probably been like 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. But this dude like straight up like cannonballed into the fucking crowd, kind of, or like front flipped onto them. And I'm like, dude, you're pushing like 300 pounds or a little more. And like, I don't know. So it's like, I'm not, but I'm like, all right, I'm also aware that the demographic of people here are like now old friends and family of this band. And, they're not going to catch me either. But I also feel like that show deserved it to have some sort of whatever. And then
is August Red on that? Are they on the tour with Trivium?
I don't remember who the opener. I don't remember who the third or fourth is on that. I just know
there's a show that I think August Burns Red is gonna be at 20. That's the show I'm gonna.
I just got an email about August Burns Red, so I mean maybe it was a tour announcement that I didn't look at.
It was just
today.
That will be the day that I go and crowd surf.
But I was gonna say it was funny because the weird thing is like my wife's like crowd surfing stupid, all this kind of other shit, and then like her friend broke her neck, and we've seen the thing from the chick that was paralyzed or whatever's going on with her. I'm probably misspeaking. God, I don't remember the band name. Foreign Hands? No, it wasn't Foreign Hands. Some other band. Some band that I was like, really? Like, that's the band that like you got broken in half by with the singer falling on you or whatever.
Oh.
But like it's a big thing right now, and I know a lot of people are very feel the way they do about it, but it was kind of funny to me because I was like, I just feel like these guys, like it's a heavy band, like, and no one's really doing a whole lot during that show. So at least like you're playing a show with no barricade. Like I know that all the guys at this point, so like who cares? Like and I think that was like the funny thing is like when I got up there, my whole thing was just like I don't want to like step on anybody's pedal board or anything or fuck up any of the shit. That's my big concern. It's like I just don't want to ruin a song. I forget who it is. There's a video where someone got on stage and accidentally like hit like the tuner, and that's basically the bypass for everyone most of the time. So it's like the dude stepped on that, and then like the guy's playing, and it just stops because like he stepped on this. Yeah, no guitar. So it's like I'm always just like same thing. Get on, get off, and it was just so funny because like Zach, their keyboardist, was the one who like on stage who came and got me, and he was so stoked. Yeah. And then like I'm trying to move Jordan out of the way so I can just get the fuck off the stage real quick, and it's like I see it, and I know this to be true because I talked to most of the guys since the show. So it's not me being like, yeah, and like that's really what reinvigorated the band and kind of like kicked it into another gear. But they were like, when that happened, it almost gave everyone else in that room permission to like, oh, we can move around, we can do this shit.
The crowd went nuts after that. It was cool.
And it was kind of this weird thing that was just like, it was for me. I just wanted to do it because like in that room, I've never done that in that room for the most part. Because usually I'm like it's not like a normal venue where it's like once you get on that stage and you go, it's like it's a hard floor and a lot of people aren't paying attention there. Like so, it's like I don't want to fall and eat shit on that floor, which is already probably going to happen with all the beer spilt on it. But it was a thing where I was like, okay, Dale can help me. You're tall enough. It'll be a one person on and off essentially.
It's like grab you, just walk you to the stage.
Yeah, and then it was just like one of those things where. But it was interesting just to see how quickly the dynamic changed between the band and everyone in attendance at a show like that. So to me, I think kind of to kind of wrap it all up. And it's like,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, though. I think that's sort of it in a nutshell, is like, you kind of got to think of others, but at the same time, like, it's all about you, and it's just about like what this environment and this music is kind of making you feel. That it's interesting that like in life we have so many rules placed on us, like you can do this, but you can do this here, or you can do this here. Like there's places and times that you're supposed to do, think, or feel.
Yeah.
And shows are one of those things where it's not about that. It's about kind of being in the moment. And it's ironically, for having a huge problem with that through most of my adult life, of not being able to focus and be in the moment, one of the few times where I'm so hyper fixated on being in the moment and being present of where I'm at is actually at a show. But I don't think I sometimes give myself that permission to do those things and feel like I'm a part of something, because I feel like through doing what I do, it's like I'm more of the observer now. I want to make sure everything is good and as it should be, not causing problems, or if there is a problem, that I'm able to help fix it in some way, shape, or form.
And like into that though, like you did it the right way. Like not that there is a right, well, there is a wrong way, right? Because you did it. You said, you're like, hey, I want to crowd surf up, and then I want to stage dive back. Will you be there to catch me? Because you knew that you were, if you'd have stage dove on the wrong person, you could have hurt him.
Yeah.
And like, that's one thing. Like, I think people need to understand. Like, I love when people are there to have fun, and like make sure, like, lose yourself in that moment. Like, do the thing that you want to do, but also make sure you're not hurting someone else. And that's for me, like, the biggest thing. Because I watched the Seosin show, man. God,
I'm so bummed I missed that,
dude. But the dude was your size, decided to stage dive, and there's everybody else on the bear, like it was a barricade, so everybody against the stage is your size, except for one girl who's like 100 pounds. Guess who the guy jumped on? And it was one of those where they kind of stopped, like, hey, can we get this girl some water? So I looked Bart.
I like how water is also the cure-all for anything. Oh, did you get squashed by a 400-pound guy? Do you have water for them? Here's 2 bottles of water. I hope that helps.
So I had the water. It was funny because, like, this is only the second time I've ever seen Seosin, and you and I had talked earlier in the year of, like, I never really got into them, and I saw them a couple days prior to that show with. I was hanging out with my friends that are in Fit for King. We were watching Seosin at Louder Than Life, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is what these guys are about." So it was crazy doing all that. So I get to see, I'm watching them, and this happens. I give the water, and I randomly met the bassist earlier that night, Chris. I was just talking to him. I think his name's Chris.
I think so.
But I was just talking to him, and so I hand the water, and I was like, "Oh," I really had that moment of, "Oh, you're actually the bassist." I didn't realize I was just being friendly. And he gets the whole room to start chanting my name. I was like, which that is something that is super humbling. I think you were there. I think you were at one of the shows where that happened, and it's just gnarly. And again, I never know what to do in that moment. I'm just like, I feel so small and so big at the same time. Yeah. Man,
so I'm gonna have you plug socials and whatever you want to plug.
Oh, I just.
But I feel like we would be remiss to not end with this banger of a story, since it literally happened at a show here in town that you were working. Why don't you go ahead and tell what happened after the last Attila show?
I hate you so much for this.
Because that was a viral moment for I think kind of just in that scene. That was a pretty big moment. So there are people probably listening that maybe know that this happened, but don't know that you and I that it was at our show in the intersection at Elevation, and that you were working it, and you had to deal with the repercussions of the story literally firsthand. All
right, so socials. Let me do that first. I think my only real one that I'm ever on anymore is Instagram, and now I have to actually look it up and see what the whole thing is. 1 second. Oh, by the way, ABR is on the Bullet for My Valentine show, so I most likely will be crowd surfing that day.
I'll have to try to I'm gonna try to finagle another interview with Jason from Bullet.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to earn my free ticket by doing some work if I can.
I got two tickets. So if nobody else, my normal, you're like my number 3 of my
Yeah, I know.
my list. So if that's number 1 and 2 don't take it, you're there. My Instagram is just Little Dale 1987. It's a Little Dale because Dale Jr. and Big Dale is a monstrous 5'10". But when you grow to 6'8", and everyone goes, and after 20 years of your life you're being called Little Dale, like the nickname just doesn't go away. So
I always figured it was like the Little John thing from Robin Hood.
I'm Little John, but I'm not so little. So yeah. Oh man, where do I begin on this story? This lady, she's probably she's late 50s. She was elderly. She was probably, I'm probably being very nice by saying 50s, but
I think so.
I think she was in the 60s. Yeah,
I'd probably say mid 60s.
She was there to have a good time, and she had the best time of her life.
All right, I'm going to stop you there for just a second to kind of bring back something we had said earlier about how like we people watch and we'll just rip on people at shows. That was totally someone I had clocked because they were directly across from my vantage point. And I remember thinking, and I don't give a fuck how this sounds, I stand behind my sentiment 100%. That family of people look like I was like, how do you even have 2 fucking pennies to rub together to be here at this show? Why are you even at the show? Because it doesn't even look like you listen to this music at all. So there was that.
Oh no! When I saw her, I was like, man, this lady's gonna have to get walked out of here at some point. She was drunk, very intoxicated, and so during, it was like one of their last songs. Franz was like, hey, who's an aspiring vocalist? And she's just like screaming at me. He's like, do you know the words? She goes, no. He goes, fuck it, let's get grandma up here. And so one of the dudes, I'm training how to catch crowd surfers. I look over to him.
They were playing Bout That Life.
Yeah.
Big part because they're gonna do the big gang vocal in the middle of the song.
Yeah, and so so he had another person who actually like knew the words they came up to sing, but she's up there with the microphone. So between her getting on the stage and not, so I'm training this other guy, and he goes to pick her up, and ladies, she's a 90 to 130. Like and the guy is my size, and he's like struggling to get her up. I'm like, what the hell? So I walk over and I just like, just pick her straight up. I get her straight up. I walk her, put her on the stage. I think nothing of it. And it's hot. It's so hot in that room. And I always like I just do one of these, and so I do this, and then I go under my nose, and when I go under my nose, like, the fuck was that?
Smelling salts.
And, dude, it took me back because like there's nothing, like I didn't see anything, nothing. I just smelt this god awful smell. And I look over at the other guy, and go, hey man, do you smell shit? And he goes, what do you mean? I was like, lift your arm up. The one that, because he tried to pick her up with one arm. He picked it up. He smells like, oh God. And I'm like, oh no.
And to pause too, I'm watching this from my vantage point because I'm seeing you guys making weird faces, and I'm like, and just keep seeing this, and I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Dude, there's crowd surfers coming. We don't give a shit. Pun intended. We turn around, we look at the stage. This lady, this individual, there were droplets of liquid all over the stage, and just soaked all the way down the inside of her pant legs of just feces. And Franz later on in the day, or that night, because he heard about it, and I go back and I was talking, because Gideon was playing that night, I go back and talk to those guys. He's like, dude, did you hear about the grandma? I was like, oh yeah, dude, here's the whole story. And he's like, it was absolutely gnarly. the story gets a little bit better too. I think I told you this.
She gets a Depends contract.
No, dude. So, I don't know if I'm able to tell this part of it, but we'll go for it until and if I get in trouble, I get in trouble. So earlier in the night, that lady was asking to talk to my supervisor.
Oh, I think I know this story.
Yeah, I told you about this, but asking to talk to him, and she was so intoxicated. He comes down and he's like, "Hey, how's it going? I heard you want to talk to me." And she's like, "Oh, I wanted to talk to, name." And he goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm that person." And he's like, "So what can I do?" And she's like, "Well, I just wanted to talk to this person." He's like, "Oh, okay, well, they're not here now." So it's like, dude, she was like, because as soon as I watched her, when she came in the venue, she started just drinking, and just it just escalated. Like I never once saw her that night without a drink in her hand, and it was a new drink probably every 20 minutes, and it was hilarious. And so anyway, he's like, "All right." I just wanted to thank him because, he the boys that she knew used to work there at one point and took care of him, blah blah blah. So he tells me he reaches out to one of the guys because they posted something or something about it. But it gets back to him, like the whole tweet that Franz did got back to him, and find out it's actually someone that a friend of a friend that I know, that I even know. It was this dude's mom, and so he sends it to the guy's mom or to the guy. He's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Oh, it's just when it's one of those just small town things, man." It was hilarious, but I saw the tweet, but I heard that it was either on Instagram or Twitter, but I knew a lot of people got, again, pun intended, got shitty with him about it because oh, you're making fun of someone. No, the lady was so drunk she literally shit her pants.
Had no idea.
Didn't catch it. She didn't know. We didn't know until we got her on the stage. And then when our crew was coming through to tear down the stage, I was like, "Hey guys, stay away from those little droplets. That's not sweat. That's shit, liquid poo." And yeah, we had quite the chuckle about that one.
It was just. It's not often you get to experience something so just diabolically awful like that. And like I said, from my vantage point, because like we've established, I kind of sit in between the stage and the barricade, off where if you're going crowd surfing, you're going to run by me and my wife usually down an elevation. And so it's a thing where I'm observing a lot of things. So I could see that trio, that little pocket right over there by stage right of that crew. And they're kind of being rambunctious. And at one point, I just remember clocking this old lady. And I'm like, what the fuck? What are you doing here? Having a great time. But you could tell, didn't know the music, but just was so blasted that it was oh, I'm just having fun. And everyone's having fun. We're drinking. Just one of those kind of things. I guess.
She was.
I mean, I couldn't see that, but
dude, she was having a great time. It was
just awesome. One of those things. Like I said, I see her get lifted up because I saw her hand raised when Franz was who wants to come up, and I saw her and I was like, yeah, please get that lady. And then, like I said, I'm watching the guy struggle initially, and she's probably all of 5'3", 5'4", just a tiny, compact old lady.
I was like, why are you struggling, dude?
And I remember the look on your face because you're standing where you were, maybe not like this, but I just remember you kind of sort of looking like you were giving him shit, you can't.
No, I
need help with this.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Dude.
Just kind of the look of then, like you said, you just lifted her up, and then you guys are kind of in darkness as everyone's literally fixated on the two ladies and Franz and the whole band, and I just keep seeing a silhouette of you two kind of huddled near each other, but not facing me, kind of facing where she was standing, and all I see is this. Just lifting arms, pointing at arms, doing this and making faces, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on over there? And then I see you pointing at her, and then I'm like, what am I missing? And then when it was when it was revealed, because I think I texted you. I always text you in real time, knowing you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
But it was I was like, what the fuck was going on? And then Bridget was like, "Did you see Franz's TikTok thing or whatever?" And I was like, "No, because I'm not on TikTok." And then she goes, "Oh, apparently that lady shit her pants." And I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I was like, "Well, I can't wait for Dale to see this text I sent him," because I was like, "What are you both going on about?" So I knew before you had texted me, I was like, "Oh, apparently they were smelling their arms of when they picked this lady up. That's so gross."
Well, yeah, I unfortunately was one that revealed that she had shit her pants because
Let's
tell it because it was it was their crew that was going to clean up the stage. I was like, "Hey, don't touch that.
Hazardous materials.
Yeah,
you're not qualified." Yeah.
Also, that is not the grossest thing that I've ever encountered while working security.
Was it the dude? You could tell the. You're talking about people this past year where the dude fucked his knee up or her arm?
No.
So that was gross.
No, the one
I didn't see it, thank God.
Oh no, that one was when the dude's kneecap was dislocated. No, actually one during Iceland Kills at Upheaval 2 years ago. Dude's foot was going the opposite direction.
Yeah, I forgot about that one too.
That one was pretty rough. I got him out of there. No, the grossest thing was when I was actually working Irish on Ionia, and this lady was super.
Also, for reference, for those that aren't from here, Irish on Ionia is our St. Patty's Day thing where they basically block off a couple, 2 blocks or so.
Yeah, it's like a whole street in front of all the main.
And then basically they just invite all the drunkards to pay money to go get drunk in a confined area, and it's about what you would imagine.
Yeah, it's again.
And it goes all day and all night.
Yeah, 7 to 10, like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yep.
No, there's a girl who lost her whole group, and I felt bad for her. She comes, she's talking to me, and she's got her hands on me, and she's crying. She wipes her tears, and I'm like, "Hey," I was like, "Miss, you're are you cut?" So I get her step back, and I was like, "Hey, are you cut? You're bleeding." And,
hold on just a second. I gotta feed my dog. She just literally pounced and poked her head around the corner and be like, "What are you doing? It's dinner time." Food. Yeah, so give me just a second to feed her real quick.
All right.
Oh, I know. You gotta get fed. Oh. Oh. Sorry. Can't hear you. And this is why I really need to get in the habit of turning on my text on my computer, because apparently Bridget's home.
Well, so you'll probably want to leave this part out, but if you don't, it's gold. Okay, so this girl, she was very distraught, very very intoxicated. It was it's my first Irish Ionia, so it's my first time doing a big 20,000 people crowd, and I'm just all right, let me help you get your friends, whatever. And she so I see her, and she's just crying, and all of a sudden she wipes her face, and there's blood on her face, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Okay, because she's sitting on the ground, so it might have been broken glass or something. So "Hey," I was like, "You cut yourself? Let's see where you cut yourself." And we're looking at her arms and hands, there's nothing going on. And I look, and at this point, there's blood on my shirt from her, and I was like, "All right, where were you just actually?" "Well, I was just at the bathroom," and then we both realized at the same time, and I looked down, and it was not the normal kind of blood that you would see, and so now other people are around us going freaking out, and I was like, "All right." So I had to help this person find her phone and call her friends. I'm like, "You guys need to get her home now." That was the grossest thing, because she had it under cause she was this, and it was under
Braveheart,
and just straight up the paint, right? Just ready to go into battle, and I got it on me, and she was so distraught. When I figured it out, she went to go thank me, and had her blood covered hands coming towards my face. I'm like, "All right, we're good." So yeah, that would be the grossest thing to ever happen to me.
Well, kind of a thing I've been doing at the end of these. Yeah. I've only done a couple of these, but at this point, this is where I kind of take the thing to thank you for doing this, for being a part of a milestone for the podcast, and the friendship. Really, it's kind of the crux of the 500th episode, is sort of the friends I've made through doing this show, through just kind of going to shows,
super
and all that,
and be on this.
Well, I mean, a big thing that was kind of rough. Like I still think I want to do something about it. I just don't know how. It doesn't sound stupid from my perspective, but I think like last year, especially after the foot surgery and stuff like that, it's like that time sucked. And I didn't really have a whole lot to be optimistic about at the time, because it's like you can't walk, you can't go anywhere for fear of stepping on this thing, this surgically healed foot or whatever. And it's like all you're looking at is like, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, can't even, like, to the point, two people, like literally my dad had just had open heart surgery a few months before that. And talking to Andrew from Ghost Inside, the two things, and talking to them, my dad was kind of offering like, this is, I had a major surgery, I couldn't do these things. And, the big thing, and both of them made the comment about, if there's a small thing I can give you, it's like, if this is something you can't do, like just being able to wipe your own ass, like make that a goal. Because like, it's a thing where like, I'm a pretty clean person. I usually probably shower at least twice a day. And it's a thing for me where not being able to shower myself, not being able to get up to go to the bathroom by myself, like I need help just getting up and going. The rest of it I could do. Thank God. I remember texting my dad and I was like, dude, thank God, day one, straight up out of surgery, I can wipe my own ass, I can do all that. I was like, getting up is a bit of a struggle. But it's a thing where it's like, I don't like relying on other people. I don't like feeling useless. I don't like feeling helpless. Not good at just sitting around doing nothing. And as someone with a very active mind, that's even worse, because then it's like all you can think of is, these are the things I want to do, but I can't. And it was a thing where it's like I really wanted to go to shows. I wanted to go do things that made me feel normal in some capacity. And it's like a big thing that I was probably going to miss at the time was that the DGD, like Falling in Reverse show and all that. And it's like I really wanted to go, and I couldn't drive. I didn't want to make Bridget go, because like she wasn't really into seeing any of those bands, especially on the day and all that kind of stuff. And it was a thing where like I had so much fun, and that was like one of the very few bright spots in that like darkness for me, where it's like I have this thing I can look forward to. I at least want to be capable enough on my own to not be a burden to Dale, to be like, now carry me everywhere, to my fucking seats, out of the car. Like, I know you would have, but it's just a thing where it's like, I didn't want that. And, you were talking earlier about the text messages that you would send people. Like, you were one that was constantly checking up and seeing how I was. And I probably wasn't really great in return, because all I could think of is like, and I feel like it's opened me up to understand how when other people are going through things, that our inherent nature is to kind of shut down. Like, there's a friend that I do like the Marco Polo things with, and a lot of times she'll be like, I don't really have anything to say. Nothing's happened. And even when she's talking about the mundane things that she doesn't think are interesting or whatever, like there's a lot that's happened. There's a lot of things happening in personal relationships that are happening in that time. And it's a thing where I realize we all think that when we don't have something in comparison to somebody else who's doing more than we are, or better than, or whatever, that we just project based on what we see other people doing in a faux light of social media and so forth. And to me, it was one of those things like I didn't want to respond, because I didn't want to be like, well, I stayed awake for almost a full day. The only time I got to sleep tonight was when I took my my oxys, and then I slept for like 2.5 hours, zonked the fuck out, and then now I'm awake 4 o'clock this morning. I'm stressing about other shit. I'm wondering if my marriage is going to fall apart because of financial reasons, because I'm not making money currently. I don't know if my job's going to be there, even though they say it will be when it comes back. Like, it's hard to be in your own head and have all those thoughts, and then not want to, as you were saying earlier, not want to trauma dump on other people. And it's like, for me, you're very much like me, like a very positive person for the most part. So it's like, I know, and this isn't taking any, like, this isn't, however this may sound, but it's like, I already knew the shit that was going on with Dakota too. So it's like, I know that some people don't have the capacity to deal with one person going through some real life shit, let alone another person. And to me, it was just a thing for me where it's like, I'm very appreciative of our friendship, the conversations we have about a lot of different things, ranging from just concert experiences, music, whatever, very, mundane, whatever topics, but even to real shit, talking about family issues that we've discussed in private, between the two of us. And just things in general. And the thing that I've always appreciated and value about you is your candidness about everything, your honesty and vulnerability with some of the things we've discussed. And, I want you to know that I don't take any of that for granted or lightly at all, especially for how little we've really known each other, the capacity that we do now. But it's a thing where when doing this, you have championed a lot of the episodes with some of your friends, like Garrett from Silent Planet and so forth. And it's a thing where, I often joke when people are like, oh, like to Bridget, like, how do you like John's show? And she goes, I don't fucking listen to it. It's like, for the most part, whenever you start a creative endeavor, your friends and family will be the ones that are more supportive in a kind of non-vocal, like it's a vocal minority where they're like, it's so cool you're doing this. But it's like, to actually support you and check it out or share it or talk about it, like people don't, and it's fine. I know that to be a reality from doing other creative endeavors and seeing other people do it as well. You're someone who always champions all your friends in anything they do in a creative space.
Yeah, I want my friends to win, man. That's
absolutely.
That's
so to me, like, a big thing I talk about on the show is, those that I feel motivate me to want to do better, to want to be who other people see me as and stuff like that. And you're someone that is very quickly kind of ascended the ranks of someone in that who is nothing but positive and always just wants the best for everybody. And it's infectious. And, I kind of want to put a spotlight on you. And, I talk about you enough with all the other people that we've all mutually gotten to know through doing what we do. And I don't know anyone that knows you that has a bad word to say about you. So to me, I want to give you your flowers in real time, give you a platform to kind of, showcase who you are and why I think so many of us that have come to know you over the recent years, why we all are proud to call you a friend. And so for that, I'm very thankful to have you be a part of my 500 episode week.
Yeah. No, dude, that I don't have a lot of words to that. That means a lot. I will say I can't take all the credit because I used to be an angry little curmudgeon asshole myself. I've had some pretty incredible people in my life that have helped me see the better in people and in humanity, and I've gone from I don't like people to type of individual to what I am now. There's days that I'm not, but I generally enjoy being around people, and I've just started to accept that in myself. One thing I did want to kind of touch on real quick. We talked about the text messages and stuff. One, I send those out because I don't care if I ever get a response back. Anytime I was just like, hey man, thinking of you, because I send it to people in general, and I know other people have said the same. Like they come back with the same thing. I'm a shitty friend and didn't respond. No, that's not what that's about. I just want to make sure that people know if I haven't heard from you in a while and I'm thinking of you, there's a possibility, like it's a 50-50 chance you're just going through a bad spot. And I want to make sure that, I guess a little bit more personal stuff. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but, I've had a couple friends, again, I talked about, my cousin, there's a time I had to pull him out of a house where he was trying to OD on heroin. I had to see him in a very terrible state. And I had another friend who I just had this feeling one day, and it was Christmas. My dad was over. Actually, both my parents were over at the time, which it was after they were divorced and all that. But they came over for both of them were at our house is when me and my wife just got married, and we had this huge dinner, and I started thinking of my buddy, and I hadn't heard from him in a couple weeks, and I knew he was kind of down on his luck. And so my dad and I, we took food, a giant plate of food. It was like 2 pounds of prime rib, 2 lobster tails. Like, we took food over to him. And, he just looked odd, and we just, hey man, we were thinking of you today. And a couple weeks later, he called me up, and he came and lived with us for a few months. And then after about a year or so after he moved out, he and I were talking. He goes, man, I was in the process of killing myself. I was in the process, and you knocked on the door as I was trying to strangle myself and end my life. And I thank you for just listening to your gut. And so for me, when I text people, it's because I want people to know that at the end of the day, they matter. And if you never text back, I don't care. That's not for me. The part for me is me sending the text message, letting people know that I love them and that they matter. So that's really what it's all about. And I've had those situations. I've seen people in their worst. I've had friends that I have the burden and the privilege of being that light for them. And when you hear that type of thing, it is hard, but it's a good feeling. And I, like I said, man, I appreciate everything you just said about me. It means so much. And again, I'm very honored to be your friend. I'm honored to call you a friend. You like you said, we've only really been friends for around the 2 year mark, man. But honestly, for me, it feels like we've been friends for a lot longer than that. Like it has been a very long 2 years in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just doesn't. You don't get friendships like that. Like I've had friends of 10 years just walk out over some stupid shit, and you just kind of you realize like the people you surround yourself are the people you want to reflect as well. And so there's things about you that I love and I want to emulate as well. Like you also have a big heart for people, and you're very inquisitive, and that's what I like, and that's why I do listen to and watch a lot of these podcasts, because you don't ask the questions you ask because you're just trying to move the conversation along. You're asking the stuff for yourself, and that was the thing. Someone had said to me, they had a conversation with somebody, or they had a friend that had a conversation, and they started the conversation with, hey, how are you today? And the person, I guess their response was something to the effect of, well, why are you asking? Do you care? Like, what's your motivation? Are you just asking because it's a pleasantry, or are you asking because you actually care? And for me, this is the second part I wanted to touch on. Like, if I ask that question, it's because I care. And I've learned a long time ago, like I only have, like you said, right? You only have so much of yourself that you can give to people. But if I'm asking that question, I am. That's my way of also telling you, like, I have this time, I have this bandwidth. If I don't have the time to respond right at that moment, I'll go, hey, I see what you're saying. I don't know how to respond to this, but I will come back to you. So, like, never feel like you're a burden. And I mean this for anybody who's ever, listening to any of their friends. If your friend asks that question, asks how you're doing, and you're having a bad day, that's on them. Trauma dump. They open that door. If they're your friend, then they care. And if they're not your friend, you'll find out, right? You'll see where the friendship really stands, right? Because I have a buddy of mine that I met through working, and he and I've known him. We've been friends, working together on and off since, I want to say 2011, 2012. And when we're having a bad day, we reach out to each other. I mean, I was his boss for a little bit, and but like, again though, I don't see, like, we live less than a mile away from each other, and we hang out maybe once a year if we're lucky. but when we talk and we hang out, like, it feels like it was yesterday was the last time we hung out, but and that's my point. It's like you get friends like that you never expect. And I know for me, like, if I'm having a bad day, I can go to that person. Like, I know if I'm really having a bad day, if I reach out to you, I know you'd pick up the phone if you had the time. And that's the type of people that I want to surround myself with. And it's unfortunate the people that I've lost in life that are still around, but like I've lost as friends, because those friendships, like, even though there's parts of the friendship that's really just absolute ass, there's so much of it that's just like, man, this person was there through a really bad part of my life or through a really good part of my life, and there's a bond that you share with those people that it doesn't really, like, I grew up as an only child, so like I don't have any brothers and sisters. Like, all of my family that I have, like, that's the friends, that's the people that have made family. Like, I've got cousins, But there's family drama and stuff that, unfortunately, like some of my cousins are innocent in it all. But I've just walked away from most of my family on both sides of my parents' side. Um, it's just because of things that took place. Um, again, if any of them ever see this, because I think, when you post this, I'll share it to my Facebook. If they get this far in the episode, apologize. If you want to reconnect, feel free to reach out. And again, anyone that I've ever wronged, like I think about that stuff, and that stuff matters, So again, I appreciate you giving me the chance just to talk, get other people to know who I am, and again, like that's what I like about you, about this whole industry. Everything about it is I just get to be myself, and then I don't have to be fake. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to try to be this tough guy that I don't want to be. I don't have to, I can just genuinely be who I've always been, and I don't have to filter myself, and it's wonderful. My advice to anybody who does watch this, it's just find a place where you feel you and be that person, and that's where you need to be in life. Find friends that let you be yourself. Don't because I also, I'm sure you had friends like this at one point that, oh hey, don't act like that around, in this no, fuck you. This is me. I'm gonna be me. Be a dick. I don't give a shit. Like, but it sounded like it was like, okay, I'll tone it down. I was like, no, and now I get people that look forward to seeing me when they come through, and it's like, and I look forward to seeing them, and it's like, jeez, this is crazy. I've got, there's people I don't know, man. I never, like I said earlier, I never would have imagined that I would be where I'm at, and I've got, an amazing family, two incredible kids. My support system at home is phenomenal, and allows me to do all this crazy shit and hang out with friends and be away from home. And I love everyone who backs me, and I appreciate them. That's friends and everyone else involved. So again, man, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. I can't thank you enough for thinking of me for this. It means a lot more than you'll ever know.
Yeah, no, it was, like I said, I was making the list, and I knew it needed to be 7, and then I was like, I got one I want to do. And then I realized at the end, I was like, it's my thing. I can do and have whoever I want on at any point. I don't have to appease some sort of boss or masters or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something a little out of left field that I think most people probably wouldn't expect. And when they see it, probably most people, no offense, because I feel the same way when I'm on someone else's show where I'm like, people are probably like, who the fuck is this person? And then, sometimes I get, the people that do listen to the show, like some people will be like, I didn't know who that band. I didn't think I'd like anyone from that person, like that band, or didn't know anything about them. And, listened to the episode and found out I really enjoyed them. And then I started kind of liking the band or something. So I don't know. To me, it's like, I always want to champion those that kind of do things that are not normal. And I would say, obviously, having a full-time adult job and then being like, you know what, I want to be a security guard at 3 venues all over the city, all over the state, and find my way into this new profession at, almost 40. It's like, that's interesting. Let's figure out why is that your thing? How did you get into it? Like, because, someone might listen to this and then be like, you know what? I guess I can try doing this new thing, whatever it is. Like if this guy Dale, who I don't know, is having a lot of fun doing this thing that sounds awful to me, having to pick up an old lady with shitty pants, like that sounds awful. I would never want to do that. But you know what? I want to do X, Y, or Z. Like it kind of just gives you the permission to do it.
It's one of those things where it's like, I look back and doing this. It's so much fun. I've always had fun doing it. And shit, at least I was probably, would have been 4 years ago, so I'd have been 30, 33, 34 when I started doing this. But my advice to anyone is, if it's something you really want to do, fucking do it. Try it. There's opportunities. Like this is a part-time gig. I go to different venues. I can, they'll call me for certain shows. And I pick shows that I want to do. It's fun. It's a hobby. The other part too is my biggest thing. Is never be afraid to meet your heroes. A lot of people say, you're going to have bad experiences. if the first thing you do is fucking trauma dump. If you treat them like an intangible, unhuman, godly type figure, you're probably not going to have the greatest experience. But if you sit there and you talk to them as a person, you get to know them, and you actually show them that you give a shit about them as a person. I've only ever had one bad experience. I had two, and one of them, like, it was just a misunderstanding. So I've had one-ish bad experience out of the hundreds, probably almost thousands of band people I've interacted with now, and hundreds of them being favorite bands of mine.
Right.
Several hundreds of them being favorites. Like, I've had one bad-ish experience. That's definitely worth the risk.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for doing this. Sorry for keeping you from your kids and your wife and potentially quote unquote work.
I was able to take a little bit of a break, so I've been grinding all week. On and off, so I appreciate it, man. I hope you have a good rest of your day and a great weekend.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks.
So that was my conversation with Dale. Want to thank him once again for coming to do this thing. I know it's not something that I think he would have maybe have done a little while ago. I think the idea of being sort of the focus of something like this is a little bit uncomfortable for him. But I think, like I said, in the intro and kind of throughout the episode, he is someone that I think needs to be championed. I think he is just a great person. And I think the other big thing too, like I said, I love putting a spotlight on people who want to do something and just figure out a way to do it. Venue security probably isn't that hard of a thing to get into, but I'll tell you this, I can't think of anyone maybe outside of Dale who is still consistently doing venue security over the last handful of years that I've seen. There's a couple people, but not given the same opportunities to go work at other venues. And when you go to shows like this past weekend, Dale and my wife and I went to go see Andrew and Dance Gavin Dance in Detroit. Dale and the smiles he put on people's faces just by being there and saying hello to them, his fellow venue workers, you just don't see that very often. Most people, when they get into work, I'm here, it's whatever. And that carries over into the relationship that Dale has been able to form with some members of the bands, like Tuck from Fit for a King now, like invited him up on stage. Like, that's the show graphic, as you'll see. That's when Dale got to come on stage and play with Fit for a King. I know every time Silent Planet comes through, Garrett always looks to him to help him, get into the crowd, and knows that Dale will keep him safe from falling over or help him get back to the stage. I've watched countless fans at shows rely on Dale to help them safely get over the barricade and continue to have fun at the show. Dale is basically a conduit for a good time when you go to a show. I can speak from experience, as you heard, from me doing it at the Still Remain show probably a year and a half, 2 years ago now, to literally even at the Dance Gavin Dance show. Dale was in the pit and just basically picking people up to crowd surf them, a handful of rows of people over. And, it's something I like I said, I love seeing the pure joy that this man has doing and being at shows. And as of when I'm recording this, Dale has taken a pretty big step to try to make his passion into a career and getting into the touring world. I know, I'm not going to mention the tour yet. I don't want to jinx it, but he ended up leaving his job, his career that he had gone to college for and spent a lot of time in, and decided to kind of bet on himself and to try to make this a thing for himself, because if not now, when? And by all accounts, it looks like it's going to happen. And I know Dale will be one of those people that if he can take that same sort of level of respect and energy and enthusiasm that he has shown across all the venues, to all the bands, to all the fans here in the state of Michigan, and to other festivals and so forth, then I can't imagine that that's not going to open so many other doors for him to be successful in this industry that he wants to be a part of, more in the behind-the-scenes facet of things. But I couldn't be more proud of this dude. I think he has done a tremendous job of just going after and setting just crazy goals that I think are awesome to see, hopefully panning out, and just diving headfirst into any and all opportunities to make it happen. I think we can all learn from that, and I think we can all I should say, strive to be more like Dale in our day-to-day lives. So I will start wrapping up this episode. I'm very excited to have introduced you all to him. And if you would like to keep up with Dale, I don't typically do personal people's Facebook things, but if you like to follow Dale on Facebook, because potentially you're going to start seeing him around, like I said, 6'4", hard to miss this guy. Dale.shepherd.jr., and it's not Shepherd, it's Shepherd, so Shepherd, but I just say it so fast it sounds like I'm saying Shepherd. And then Instagram is LittleDale1987. And Twitter is at LittleDale87. If you would like to keep up with the podcast, simple enough, Brew Speak Pod on all your social media platforms, whatever you are listening to this on. If you can rate, review, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. You know why those things matter, so please do such if you are able to. And if you would like to email me at brutallyspeaking@gmail.com with guest suggestions or just keep the conversation going from a past episode, you can do that as well there. Always try to respond to those things as fast as I can. And as always, this is where we plug Rockabilia for being one of my favorite sponsors, being the only sponsor of the show. Frankie and the crew over there have become great friends, basically like family to me at this point, and I'm very excited to continue on the relationship, hopefully for another 500 and beyond. So if you go to rockabilia.com, use our code BRUTALLY at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. They are constantly updating, doing all kinds of collabs. I think they do at least one collab or new merch drop, exclusive merch drop, at least once a month. So you constantly got to be going there. Check it out. Keep them up with them on Instagram at rockabilia.com. There's no dot, but rockabilia.com on Instagram, and they're constantly updating with different stuff, and sometimes they even have bands and such come through. They have a kind of like a Q&A type thing on their YouTube channel. If you go check that out, they've had like a Chae. I want to say they've had Refused. They had Bring Me a while ago. So they're got their hands in a lot of different things. So I think it's totally worth a follow on just for those kind of things. But all that said, this has been another episode of the Brutally Speaking podcast. Thank you so much for listening to it, and I will see you tomorrow, where I have the returning Mike Shular of Extinction AD, and This Is Hell joining me. We talk about old man things in that one. I'm very excited to get out that conversation with my friend, so I will see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.